We're excited to have you here on the very first day that actually feels like spring. You are inside. I'm going to be introducing our first presenters. I'm very excited to hear from these librarians. Chris Swerling, who's the library coordinator for the Newton Public Schools and a professor here at Simmons. Heather Leolas, who's the library teacher at Lincoln Elliott. Donna Mason, who's the library teacher at the Bowen Elementary School. Sheila Ryan Packard, who's the library teacher at Ward Elementary School. And Margaret Schoen, who is the librarian at Franklin and was my daughter's librarian. I'm super excited that they're here and looking forward to their presentation. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Thanks to all of you for coming on a Saturday morning. We've been working on trying to do our Queen's hand wave, but we're still getting there. So our session is called Ask, Create, Collaborate, the Elementary Library Learning Commons as a Library for the Future. You can find our presentation materials at this URL, and you can also use the QR code. I think I've gotten to most of you, and for a couple of you who came in at the end before we started, I'll let you know to do a QR code so that you can access any of the PowerPoints or any of the handouts, but fair warning, probably they won't get up there until Tuesday. My goal is Monday, which means it'll be Tuesday. Okay, you've already heard who is presenting this morning, but I do want to add one more name. Patty Carum, second person down, wasn't able to be with us this morning, although she was part of our original presentation at AASL. And just make note of how wonderful she is because it's taking 4 other people to fill her slot in her shoes. So she's here in spirit. Here's our session goals. We're going to start off by defining what is a learning commons and why it was innovative at an elementary school library level. We'll define the collaborative process. That's really what was the underpinning for the whole process of migrating from the traditional library to our library learning commons at the elementary level. It was the collaboration that took place among all the elementary school librarians. And you'll be hearing low cost, no cost, easy to replicate strategies and ways that you could begin a transformation in an elementary library learning commons or at any level. So what is a library learning commons? Well, it really is a shift from that traditional perspective of all books neatly on the shelves in nice rows, and the librarian is the driving force in that library. It's a shift now from that vision to a focus on the student, and it's the student that becomes the driving force in a school library. The physical space begins to evolve so that the students can collaborate together. It becomes a flexible space that fosters that kind of collaboration. And in that collaboration, as students are collaborating, they're sharing ideas. They're creating new knowledge. It's a place where it's active, it's engaging, and it's focused on that creativity, communication, and innovation, all of which are 21st century skills. Now the concept, I'm not ready yet, sorry. So, I know I'm not moving fast enough for you. Okay, so the concept really began at a university level, and it gradually began to filter down. And in Massachusetts, it was really embraced by Valerie Diggs in Chelmsford. She was one of the trailblazers, one of the leaders. And following in her footsteps, the Newton North High School library, the Newton North High School was being built. And as they were looking at creating the new library, they began to embrace this vision as well. And as you read the literature, you're going to see the name David Locher crop up quite a bit, because he's written extensively about it, as has others. There's more and more about this now. All right. So following in their footsteps, with the Newton North High School library embracing the library learning commons, began to filter down to our elementary level. And that's where we began to look at it as a place for active engagement and inquiry, for the evaluation of information, because students have to become critical consumers of information. They have to have the ability to determine when and where to use an appropriate digital tool to effectively communicate, to problem solve, to innovate. And that's what a library learning commons is from our perspective, in a nutshell. So who we are. I'm just going to say this screen is really big. Okay. We're located in Newton, Massachusetts, not very far from here. We are a district of 21 schools with 16,000 students and growing. Within the next couple of years, that number is going to be up to 17,000. There are 15 elementary schools throughout the district. They are all staffed by a certified library teacher. We have, yes. 4 of our schools this year have a combined IT, LT position, an instructional technology specialist, and library teacher shares the same job. Heather is one of those this year. Next year that will change as the populations grow in the schools. We have 2 schools that are a 0.7, 3.5 days. Sheila Packard is in one of those schools. And again, we're looking at moving that up to 4 days a week because of the growing population throughout the school district. 9 full-time library teachers, staffing 9 schools 5 days a week. We vary in size, and we vary in budget, by the way, too. We are a district where the smallest school is 298 students, up to Donna's at 505, and by the time she's back there on Monday, it could be 6 or 7.
It's 508 as of Monday.
There we go. Our schedule is fixed with some flex time built in for collaboration with classroom teachers, but based on the size of the school, that amount of flex time begins to dwindle when you have as large a school as the number of classes that Donna has on a fixed schedule during the school week. Nevertheless, that's still our goal. Our classes meet weekly for 30 minutes. We do have a library media curriculum, and we are fortunate that we are dismissed every week on Tuesdays at 12:30 for professional development. So that means there's an opportunity for department meetings, for staff meetings within the school, time to work as a PLC, time to work collaboratively on professional goals, time to work with teachers in the building for planning. And our process of migrating, we began to take the first steps to change ourselves from that traditional library space to an elementary library learning commons in 2007. Okay, I had gone to a conference and I'd heard Mike Eisenberg speak, and he very much promoted an ABC plan. Articulate the vision, be strategic, and communicate continuously, and I thought that was actually really brilliant. And so I borrowed that idea because I was asked to make a plan for the school libraries. What was our vision? Where did we want to go, and how did we want to grow? And out of that came my ABCDEF plan. And it started, and this was the first step to take towards becoming a library learning commons, was to begin to look at the appearance of our school libraries. What did they say to the students? Were they that traditional space, or did they really move us towards being a space for collaboration? The next step we took was looking at the Big Six, which really at the elementary level became the Super 3. How could we integrate into all curriculum the research process and solidify our role as library teachers? So that led us to look at curriculum and also our collections. There had been a big changeover in staff, and we were looking critically at our collections, which were sometimes older than the staff who were taking over the space. So we began to look at our collection, and also began to look at how technology could foster collaboration. What could we do when we had those library classes that would really foster collaboration among students every week? It also meant that we had to take a look at what we were doing. We had to collect data. We had to have evidence that what we were doing, we had to document a need, but we also had to document that we were successful when we were integrating a research process, or we had to take a look at the data about our collections. As we were looking at our collections, we had to look forward, and so that meant we started looking at e-books together. And all of this had the result, I think, of really empowering our learners. and it's all based on being flexible. So that was our plan, that was our vision in a nutshell. And out of that, a Library Learning Commons led by David Loescher and Valerie Diggs was held around that time in Boston, and I was fortunate enough to be able to send a few of my middle school library teachers, members of both high school library staff, and a good number of the elementary library teachers. And following up on that, what they brought back from that Library Commons is we began to look at our staff meetings, we began to develop a collaborative vision for what this would look like at the elementary level. And we all contributed to it so that at the number of our staff meetings, this is what came out of it. We wanted a space that was going to be innovative, where students could play with ideas. We needed a space that wasn't just where they were going to come in and find information. It had to be centered on the student and the student's learning needs. And also, I can't leave literature out of this. It had to be a place where they could begin to explore the world through the eyes of others, whether it was through the author's eyes or the character's eyes. They had to have access to that broad vision, and that access had to come not just through the internet. It had to be a fluid, flexible space. So some of the spaces, what they looked like in 2007 began to migrate. By 2009, they looked differently. It's something that's still in process because it still looks differently. It might look differently in 2012 and 2014 because it keeps evolving to meet the needs of the learners. They're not just accessing stuff. This is where it becomes a maker space. It's based on creativity. It's not just what students can do, but what they can create. And as we have migrated towards this concept, what we really keep talking about is developing a community of learners. Students learning together, and that means the librarian learning along with them too. It's a collaborative space for students, and we can't leave the teachers out of it also. Taking the first step, well, it was really Sheila who was the trailblazer, so I'm turning it over to her.
I don't know if I have a trailblazer exactly.
Oh, and I'm supposed to ask if there's any questions. Good.
You just made it just a little too short.
Yeah.
It's wait time.
Are we talking about wait time for this question?
Good, that was good.
So Chris has sort of laid that foundation for you to understand how we got started in moving ourselves toward that learning commons model. But as often happens, we really sort of always need kind of a little impetus, a little golden opportunity, if you will, to help yourself to make that leap and decide that you're ready to change. And for some of us, this is my library when I started at the Ward School in Newton. It's in the basement of, it was in the basement of the school. It's awful, isn't it? Oh my God. But amazingly, you don't often realize what your space looks like until you take a photograph of it. It's just on the side. But when you get into your own library space, it's a great idea to take photographs of what kids would see if they're at the front door of your library. You know, go down here and take the photograph, way up here for me. So this was my library down in the basement. For me, the golden opportunity came along when my school decided that they really wanted a cafeteria for the kids. And this basement space with vinyl flooring, very few windows, I had to look up to see if it was sunny out, was a perfect space to put the Dolphin Cafe, which it now is. And fortunately, because of changing enrollments, and this being a really old building, we were able to move the library back upstairs to a level of the first floor into what had been 2 kindergarten classrooms. So that necessitated taking a wall down in between the 2 classrooms and just completely starting from scratch with a new space. So that was my golden opportunity. Sometimes your golden opportunity doesn't come about quite that same way. You might have in your library, in your school, a change in enrollment that necessitates taking away part of your library space. And that has happened certainly to Donna here and to some of the others in our library department. And when that happens, you really need to stop and think about what the important spaces are that you want to create in the room that you have left. For some of us, golden opportunities meant moving from one building to another as we switched and moved around and our enrollments changed and people moved to different buildings. And sometimes it can just be looking at your own space with sort of a fresh set of eyes. But no matter what our golden opportunities were, we all followed a very similar process when going from a library, a traditional library, to a learning commons. We asked questions, we did our research, we created and took apart many different models, moved things around on paper a lot before we actually started moving furniture around. And most importantly, we made sure we collaborated with our stakeholders. And our stakeholders, of course, were the faculty in the building, the parents in our school community, and critically, the students who are going to be using this space. So as a result of those collaborations and constant discussions and moving models around, we came up with a general mission statement, and that was what was going to carry us through to make all of these changes. And that was to create a comfortable, engaging, common space for student-centered learning. We tried to make that mission statement as simple but all-encompassing as we possibly could. And so in order to accomplish that mission, we decided on 3 basic goals: flexibility, transparency, and successful collaborations. So that first goal, I love these photographs actually. They're examples of some of the changes we wanted to make in the physical spaces that we had available to us. Because if you're going to work from a learning commons model, you need to be able to accommodate varying group sizes, because you want to be able to have a space that will work for one-to-one student-teacher collaborations. You want a space that works for the school committee when they want to have a meeting in an elementary school setting. You want to, if you can possibly manage it, have space that will accommodate faculty meetings. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to get all of your teachers used to coming into the library, and it gives you the chance to showcase different things to them. You also want to make sure that any kind of furniture, if you're in an opportunity, as I was, to select new furniture, you're picking flexible furniture, meaning that if at all possible, it has wheels on it. You can move shelving around into different configurations. You can move tables around to different spaces. The tables that I have in the library now are they're shaped so that they can lock together, move together, and make different configurations. And it really works well in being a visual example of ways to collaborate, because it gets you physically closer to each other. And also you want to make sure that you can accommodate different kinds of learning, because as we all know, the students are learning in different ways. They learn actually much better in laying on the floor with a computer, or working in a space where they've got hula hoops out and they're moving things around in different places. Or right here, this the seats that are here are called backjacks, and those are, I now have, I don't know, I think about 23 of them. Almost enough for every kid. But those are wonderful because they're anchor spaces for kids. They can pull them around to any place, sit somewhere with a buddy and read a story, and it really just sets the tone for them to do the kinds of things that we're hoping they'll do in that space. And then following that, we wanted to make sure that there was flexibility in the virtual space that students were accessing for our libraries. And so some of us actually took that to mean making a common look so that the website would match what the kids see when they walk in the door of the library. So they really recognize the website and the library space itself as one and the same. The second goal was transparency. And in that, again, we wanted to make sure kids could see that that mission was following through from the get-go. From the minute they walked into the library, they could see what was going to be happening for them in that space. And so to that end, we all made a really conscious effort to have student work take center stage and to surround the students with suggestive words. Ooh. But things like ask and create and think and collaborate, that kind of suggestive words, to help them to see what kinds of activities would be great in the space that they are in. And following that, another example of transparency is in wayfinding. What we found was that our kids had difficulty moving from information they'd get from the catalog to actually finding the books on the shelves. And that's where having a really consistent, multi-level signage system makes a huge impact, so that you have your signs for the individual sections of the library, then you have shelf label signs that just make it easy for parents who are putting books away, or you too, to be able to find what they're looking for, all the way down to the little labels on the books themselves. And then our third goal, and perhaps most critical for us, is encouraging successful collaboration. And this is an example here of a just-in-time research project that was being done by second graders. And you can see that they're at the tables, they've got their computers out, they're up and moving. They're not just sitting sort of unto themselves. They're working together in whole groups, moving from one place to another. And the space is set up so that we can encourage them to stretch out, to lean over each other, to offer an idea and get some feedback so that they're working on a project all together. And this is an example that you're going to see and recognize some of these photographs here when you go to the next presentation. These are from Jessica Lodge's library in Newton. And these are examples of student centers. These are spaces that are set up to be more or less permanent in the library space, but they too encourage working together, talking with one another, moving to different areas of the library and exploring and finding your own comfortable spot. So, what would you create? What we'd like to do right now is maybe give you an opportunity to sort of think a little bit about what you would make of your space. And so what we have coming up are a few examples of libraries in Newton, I think. And
it's all the same.
what we'd like to ask you to do, I believe, right now is to turn and talk with one another for a few minutes about what you see in these spaces and contemplate what you might do if this was what you were walking into when you first start having your own library. What kinds of changes might you make to fulfill that mission of the Learning Commons? So if that's okay, we'll have you start and chat for a few
I'm also a person that's right. So are you set up
Sorry, we're clearly in elementary school. Oh, next is, it's back to you, Chris, because this is Patty's turn. Sorry, so this is Patty's part, but she changed, so this is good.
So, once we got the ball rolling in terms of physical appearance and beginning to create that flexible, collaborative space that really engaged students in inquiry, we had to look then at adopting a research model district-wide, not just in a few schools, but all schools, because ultimately our students feed into 4 different middle schools, and they have to go with that same skill set and that same body of knowledge. So, what do we turn to? Well, first of all, we turn to the standards. That's where we always start. We started with AASL, our own curriculum, but the new piece that came along was the Common Core. And that has a great emphasis on students asking their own questions to engage in research and in inquiry. And it also has a great emphasis on research itself. And there's a big difference between saying to kids, go research, and actually teaching them a research process, guiding them through those steps of navigating our information-driven world. So out of that is a learning commons. We were creating that space where they could engage in this inquiry process. It's no longer a solitary thing where it's a set of encyclopedias and the student. Now it's looking at a vast range of information, including personal knowledge too, and having students share that. And as they do, and as they engage in inquiry, their brains start reorganizing all that new information, and out of that comes not only deep understanding, but new knowledge as well. So one of the things that we realized we needed to do is we all needed to start using a common language. And we looked at plan, do, and review, the Super 3. And we looked at teaching our learners to plan, do, and review. And this began to emerge. This was a summer curriculum that took place actually over a couple of summers. The inspiration for this really started Patty and Rachel Lundquist. Patty Karam, remember I'm standing up here for her right now. And Rachel Lundquist had gone to AASL in Minnesota, and they attended a session on the Super 3. And they came back totally inspired. And so they began to share at our department meetings what they had learned in that session, and they got more people on board, so that there began to be a need really to have the Super 3 across the entire district. In Patty's words, when you find inspiration, take action, and that's what we did. Okay, our action was that we started with our summer curriculum, a lot of PD there.
We were just gonna let you
We were
go.
gonna let you go.
I would have done it.
I have that $10.
So as Chris was saying, we, Rachel and Patty had done a lot of research, had heard a lot about the Super 3. So an amazing opportunity that Newton granted us, and I'm sure Chris worked, hard to help them get it.
I lobby.
Lobby, that's the word. So they presented to us at our PLC. We have the PLCs on Tuesdays. And they came back, they told us about, so they provided the library department with that professional development about the Super 3, which is just a shortened version of the Big Six, thank you, the Big Six. And then what they did was they put together a webinar for grades 1 to 5 and for the entire Newton district, which was awesome. Then what they did was they grabbed the whole second grade and they took them, they met in one library and they provided professional development to introduce them to the Super 3 so that the classroom teachers are also getting on board with this as well. And Chris had mentioned this as well, but just that the district sponsored some time for them to come together, create all those Super 3 units and lessons. And we have that up on our learning management system right now, and we're always accessing it and taking from it. And as we have on here, it's an ongoing process. The whole thing's always an ongoing process.
It's still growing.
Still growing, absolutely.
So in order to create this culture where this method of inquiry was the common standard, what we started doing is, as again we mentioned this, surrounding the kids with these ideas. So you can see up in the top left it says plaster the walls. What Patty did in her library was she put the words plan, do, and review on these posters. And she just put them all over the walls and all over the windows and all over the space about 2 weeks before she started to introduce that research method to the kids. So she built interest without sort of giving things away. So that when she actually started doing the lessons themselves, the kids were already invested in trying to find out what this was all about. And then down below you can see it says make thinking visible, and that's sort of a core idea for all of us as well. And so there are boards that put up, plan, do, and review, so that almost any kind of action that's taking place can be translated into those 3 steps. And so we have those set up all around so the kids are seeing that and seeing how the process works all the time. And then one of the projects that gets done in a number of our libraries is an I Spy Super 3 research project, where the kids are going to be creating their own I Spy books based on a theme. And I'm not sure if this is Debbie's rubric. Anyway, so you work on creating a rubric, so the kids are looking at what do I really need to do to be a good planner, to be doing the right kind of action that sets me up in a good way to conduct this research. And making sure that the kids know that reviewing is an important part of this whole process as well, so that they see how to get to that spot.
Okay, so, when they did, or when their students do research, it's really collaborating this method, plan, do, review. You can see they're working together when they're planning. They're talking about, she did it, you did on bats. What do you know? They brainstorm, they work together, they do the work together. If you're in a learning commons, you can have some students on the computers, some students using books. And a great way to do it, especially if you don't have enough computers in your library, is to have different groups doing different things at the same time and then moving around. And then they come together to review and to share with each other on what they did.
So that's just a little intro to the plan to review, and I guess we usually stop and see if there's any questions about this part of it.
And we'll pretend we cancel these.
Yeah.
Even though we're not bad.
We're not bad. That was super great.
Just a comment, because Mike Eisenberg was my professor at Syracuse University. So yeah, I like to wear that.
You're just showing off.
Long ago. I mean, he's not obviously not there anymore. But I really, really think that I commend you for making this part of your whole district vision and work with research. And it so easily, it so works with kids. It just so works with kids. And they love it, and they're very active. And this is a perfect, slide that shows that. And, a la Mike Eisenberg, it's really showing the process that's transferable, which you're emphasizing also, where, so right now it's bats, but it might be something different. And it's the same process, and they really get invested in this. And I do have, and I don't know if it was from maybe your initiators of this in your district, there is a Super 3 song that the kids absolutely love, and so it's so fun. I mean, they just love it, and I think it transfers well in terms of also moving towards the Big Six and more detailed.
Yeah, developmentally, I think developmentally,
Yeah.
it's hard. You get into these 6-step things, and they're
Yeah.
3 steps. We can do,
Yeah.
second graders can go do 3 steps easily. They can keep track of what's going on and where they are in the process. So.
One of the pieces that I like about this process is not only that it helps students to navigate this information world, but it also builds in that time for reflection. What would I do differently? What did I learn from this? What if I had a project like this, what would I use to help me find my information? What did I do well? Because I think that's the piece that often gets lost and gets left out because of time. So kids really are reflecting. They're looking at their rubrics and they're really contemplating, what did I do? How did I do that? It not only lets the teacher know that, it lets the library teacher know, who then has evidence of what students have accomplished in the school library, but it lets the pace slow down just a little bit to encourage the development of the habit of reflection among children.
And speaking of the reflection, I always tell them that you can plan, do, review anything in life, anything. So I always introduce it with how do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So I call up one student, I go, plan it for us. I go, what do we need to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? And you know they always forget something. They forgot the knife, they forgot the bread. So then when we we do the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and they'll be like, oh yeah, so then you take the knife and you spread it. I'm like, oh, we don't have a knife. I'm like, I think it's time we review. We don't have a knife, right? And they're like, it's hysterical. They are just dying with laughter. Let's do another one. So I just for the reflection part, like they really enjoy that reflection where you can see stuff that they've missed in making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Will you say that one for us?
We're all friends.
Okay, let's see if I can work.
Yeah, it's hard to remember.
I'll chime in.
It's a
Process, I
Except
use
you do
it's
it.
called a super
It's
3.
bingo.
Go, plan, do, and review, plan, do, and review. It's called the super 3. And anytime I say now, like, okay, so we're gonna plan, do, review, somebody like starts
They'll
singing.
sing.
Like, okay, we're not singing right now.
Very catchy.
Is there another one? I think one other thing that's really important is content has become king. And the whole notion of a process for how to use this information, how to process it, how to make it your own, is gone to a certain degree because teachers are so driven to get through all the stuff that they have to get through. The kids do not necessarily remember because they were dragged through this thing. With plan, do, and review, it provides them with a process that they can, as Heather and the rest of you have said, can attack any kind of information problem solving. And to be able to equip them with something they can use all through the grades, that it's not going to change by virtue of the teaching you have to have, that once you can get a handle on it, and for the kids who have a hard time getting a handle on research, which is quite a few of them, it's a lot. To have the same model used over and over and over again provides them the opportunity to really learn it. So I really think that this is so important, especially in our content-driven world.
I have a question about how the interaction with the teachers works. So do the teachers stay with the class when they come to the library? Okay, so you guys are teaching these lessons independently. Are you coaching the teachers to carry that over into their classrooms? Or is everyone working together with common language and doing the process in both spaces? Okay.
This is one of the pieces that began to emerge where we had, first of all, we had the webinar, so all teachers were exposed to this from grades 1 through 5. Kindergartens weren't because they do their own method of professional development that takes place mostly during September. But I think the real impetus behind it came with the second grade, the grade level professional development that we provided because it was a double session, so we could start with one part of it and then continue on. And at the point of the webinar, one of the things that happened is we stopped the webinar halfway through so that the library teacher and the literacy specialist and the instructional technology specialist, if they were in school that day, could begin to meet with classroom teachers, and out of that emerged some collaborative projects.
So you have a whole team. So the literacy specialist and the IT specialist are involved in this too.
And the literacy specialists are because they're part of the Common Core and the research emphasis, and that's something that we're beginning to grow as a collaboration with library teachers and the literacy specialists, because we've got that common point of intersection of implementing the Common Core. We've got the research process.
Right.
We've
Now,
got
do
the
you guys,
language in
is it
place.
usually you guys who
They're working with
suggest the
classroom
research,
teachers.
like this would be, I see you're doing plans or whatever, this might be a good place for a research project? Or is it the teachers who usually say, I need to do a research project, help me out?
I think it goes both ways.
Yeah,
It just depends.
And it even goes higher up because as curriculum is being written by the curriculum coordinators, they're looking at very
Building
specific
it in.
places. And one of the things that happened this year in the social studies department is the grade 3 teachers invited all the elementary library teachers to participate in one of their grade level PDs, and that was the purpose of it, was really to begin to brainstorm for the library teachers to see what the curriculum is and to see what the need is, but really to brainstorm where they could be involved in this research piece with the classroom teachers. And I thought that was pretty powerful.
That's great.
They asked for us
Yeah, that's
instead of the other way around.
I can see see as a Common Core becomes more important, but that you guys are gonna have, we're all gonna have more role in that.
This is the free part. When we said you can do this for low cost or free, this is why I love weeding. How many of you have heard about weeding your libraries? How many of you can't wait to start doing it?
It's fun.
Weeding is awesome. So, we had a collection connection group, and because I can't say that, we call it our weeding group. So I'm going to tell you how to weed with friends. So benefits of weeding. This is before, and this is after. And if you think about a learning commons, you want it to be flexible. You want little groups here and there. And if you have shelves top to bottom and the pictures that you saw before that you talked about, what would you do? That would make it really hard. I remember the first school I ever worked in, I walked in and there were just top to bottom shelves, and in the middle, these tall shelves like that, right in the middle, totally not legal. And I was like, ooh, those need to go. All right, weeding. You end up with this. And not only does it make it more flexible, but you can put books facing out, which is great. It's like a bookstore, so they can actually see what they're looking for. So part of a learning commons is the students want to be able to find what you're looking for easily. So how it started, we were talking about our collections, and I remember thinking, oh, you know, I'm going to work, and you know, I probably won't have to do much weeding. And then I looked around, and I was like, oh no. And we all started comparing. And so Chris said, why don't you start a PLC? And a few of us have talked about that. And a PLC, when you think about a professional learning community, a lot of times you think of teachers working with other teachers to look at student work. And what we did is the librarians got together and we were looking at our collections, how we could improve our collections together to help students. So it started in 2008, it lasted about 2.5 years, and it is still ongoing. So if somebody has a weeding question, oh, Margaret, I just weeded the poetry section, you will be so proud of me. And I'm like the weeding queen, so everybody calls and tells me about these things. And we continue to support each other. So what we did is we met monthly, and we started with the 500s. If you're weeding on your own, or if you're weeding in a group, really you should start with nonfiction. And what we did was we started with a nonfiction section, and what we would say, okay, we're going to weed this section. We would go weed this section, come back, talk about it. And the great part is then, what are you going to replace those books with? And so if somebody ordered a new set of Planet books, you could bring it out and share it. And it's one thing to read the reviews, but to be able to actually look at the books was awesome. So if you do it on your own, well, no. When you do read it on your own, and if you do it with a group, it's really good to start with nonfiction. If you work with other people, it is less emotional. The problems we had, Sheila, I won't even look at you. We had an incident with some picture books and reading, and there were tears involved. If you start with nonfiction, it's cut and dry, and it is less emotional. You do need to respect that different people are at different places. If you work at other people, we had a whole Pluto incident. It is not a planet, it needs to go. But what if we explain to every child? It's like, no, you need to put, but what, no, you need, and there, like, literally this whole discussion about the science section. If you are the only librarian in your district, the first job I was in, I was the only librarian at my level. And you can talk with people at other levels, at other librarians in other towns at your level. You might think, well, if I'm elementary, I could talk to a middle school librarian or a high school librarian, but people at your level know the curriculum. And so we're so lucky there are 15 of us. I mean, it's awesome that we could work together and we could do this. But you might be in a situation that you are the only librarian at your level. And try to network and talk to other people. My email is on here. You can email, I will come read your libraries. I'm not even making this up, I know. So when we did this, most of the schools participated. The average age of our collections all went up. It was awesome. 2.5 years, more than 5,000 books were weeded. So you might be thinking, okay, if I pull all these books, my circulation is going to go down. It is the exact opposite. In my library, talking about losing space, so I have this big library, and when I first got there, we had 420 students, and now we have 508 as of Monday. We went from 16 teachers, now we have 24 classrooms. So my library got cut in half, and half is a fifth grade classroom. And I knew that. The first 7 years ago when I walked in, I said to Chris, I said, I'm not gonna keep this library the whole time. I'm losing this at some point. I just knew it, because it was huge, it was awesome. So I started reading right away. And it's a good thing I did, because now that I'm moving, it was much easier to pack 5,000 books than 11,000 books. So I started in 2011, with 6,000 books. My circulation was just over 20,000. In 2013, my circulation was 27,000. Awesome. The less books I had, the higher it goes up. Now that doesn't mean if I continue to add new books, it's gonna like go down all of a sudden. But when you can find the good books, your circulation goes up. So if you work with a group, it is really good because you get motivated. Like, you are all not happy to do it. If you work with a few other people, it gets you going. And we actually have reading bees where we'll say, oh, let's all go to this school and we will help read. And it's awesome because you sit around and talk, you compare, and it's like, oh, I have the book, and what do you think about this? You can share strategies. We also talked about things like fundraising. We compared budgets and how can you do this. For example, I'm doing this thing called Bow and Baggies for Books, and the students are raising money, and if they raise a certain amount, my hair is going to be green. It is going to be green because they're like almost halfway there. And you just can really help share ideas with each other, and it's more about just pulling the books, it's about what you replace it with. And a few things about when you first go into a school is the first thing you want to do is find out what your policy is on reading. You can't just go pulling books and, you'll be in the newspaper maybe. Not really, but maybe. But you have to figure out what your policy is. And you need to find out what you're going to do to dispose of them. There are articles about it, about, like you have to do it in the middle of the night. It is part of the responsibility, and it's part of your job, and it also causes emotions. You might know that some teachers, like I knew my literacy teacher, when she walked by, I'm like, nope, not doing anything, ignore that bag, because she would start looking at the books. Oh, but what about, do you see how yellow it is? Do you see the mold growing in this? Oh, but this page, no, it has to go. So the other thing is you start, do you know what tidal wave is, tidal-wise? So when you get into the school, the first thing you should do is run a tidal-wise report. And that way you see what you have. Like my happy thing to do is like on the weekend look at it and analyze it, charts and graphs. But really, you can like know what you have in your collection before you start. So you should start a group, it's really awesome. You should read, it's awesome. Do you have any questions? Yes.
Where do you dispose of them, or in what way? Do you have a group?
So in Newton, the books are recyclable, and so what we do is you take off the covers, you take a Sharpie, and I call it deboning. I used to pay my son $10 an hour to debone. You just like take out anything that has the school, put them in a bag, and we recycle them. And really, I know I'm going to tell them, don't give them away. There is a book in our resources that has, or in an article about don't cry over spilt milk, that tells you might want to give them to somebody, don't do it. Because if you don't want it, nobody else wants it.
Yeah, I agree.
And I mean, the very rare occasion if you have a book that is real brand new and it's more middle school, you might send it to the middle school, but they don't even want it because then they have it.
So is it your responsibility to take the bag and bring it to the recycle dumpster?
If you're doing a large scale, we had one large scale where we made friends with the custodians and we said, look, we're pulling thousands of books over the summer. And they would bring up a bucket, we would fill up the bucket, and they would recycle them. If you don't have to do large scale, I'm at the point now where I just do it like almost done, but I just do like a bag a week.
Right.
And then you just bring it out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I just want to mention too, Your selection policy should not be a dusty document that sits on a shelf. Your selection policy should have in it the procedure for deselecting books.
Yes.
And Fran Salonis, when she was the director of the Newton Public School worked hard with the director of purchasing to put that, to clearly state the procedure that would be followed to dispose of any of these books that were being deselected. So it is there, it is part of your job, it's in black and white, you follow the procedure, and that's it.
Great.
And then it's just reading policy,
Yes.
reading articles.
There is an organization, I think they're based in Waltham, called More Than Words. And it's like it's a charitable organization. We'll take pretty much anything except for encyclopedia sets. And it benefits, they sell these books that get donated to them, they sell them online. Or they throw out whatever they can't use. But the proceeds go towards at-risk youth. So it's a good cause.
You do have to check with your school district. to
Yes,
see
we had to
if
get
it's
approval
allowed.
from the school board.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
I have a quick question, comment. When I was doing my student teaching, I was doing a large reading project in the middle school, and I actually had a teacher come up to me and say, "Oh, so you're the book Nazi?" And I was like, "I'm a student, what do you want from me?" And they really needed to be weeded. And I was wondering if there's any, and now that I'm working, I do it very, very cautiously, and I don't have large piles of books lying around, and I don't put them, where anybody can see them, because it is emotional, as you said. Is there any good strategies for educating, teachers or parents? I need parents to come and rip the labels off. I don't have time to do it, but I really have to kind of talk with them. So these are things that we really don't need in the library, and give them all the reasons. Give me a good strategy.
What I do is, when I got there, I picked about 20 examples of the worst of the worst. And I have a book where it's that year that Russia wasn't Russia and it wasn't the Soviet Union. I have that book. I have, you might end up really have a book someday, you will get to the moon. I have books that have science experiments that would kill children. I have, I have all these examples, and even books that are just falling apart, and I kept them. And because I have had that happen, and even when I went to the PTO and I said, I need more money, I need to buy books, and they looked around, I'm like, yeah, but I've been pulling them, and this is why. And you show them the examples, and yeah, they're the worst of the worst, but it really gets the point across. And then when people say, well, you could put them in the teacher's room, there's this article about spilt milk, and it says, if you have spoiled milk in the refrigerator, would you give it to a neighbor? No. Then why would you give it to a teacher? Would you donate it to a food pantry? No. Then why would you give it to an organization? Would you save it because you don't know when you're going to get more milk? No, because it's spoiled. So, and really, I've been able to increase my budget and do more fundraising, having fewer books than when I started there. And just having a little article or just a few talking points in your mind, so when people do, but honestly, some people you just know that you're not going to change your mind, and you just try to be respectful and don't do it in front of school. Yes.
I have a comment about that. I had to do a huge amount of weeding in my last district, and we were moving. The collection was very outdated, that sort of thing. And we actually decided to make it transparent and just communicate about it quite a lot, and asked people. So we were reading the section for in literature or in science, would email the department and say, we're reading it, and we come down, take a look. If you see anything that you really want, take it with you. Well, that happened. A couple of teachers would come down. The collection, what we were pulling out was so bad, they stopped coming down again. And we also did invite parents and students to help us with processing them out of the collection. And it was a source of amusement to look at all these books that were just so incredibly out of date. So it actually ended up being a lot of exposure that was helpful for them to understand. And yes, there were still, I think there's a misunderstanding, and it occurred to me when the art teacher called and said, he would take the new photography books we were going to get rid of. Well, we weren't getting rid of those really nice photography books. There's this idea we're just moving everything out, particularly with the digital books and the e-books. There's this, if you're really promoting vigorously the e-books and stuff, which we are also.
That's our next slide.
Yeah, they think we're getting rid of the entire library and without any description. So I think it depends, but I do think that, really some strong communication about what the goals are and also letting them come take a look can be helpful in some.
Thank you. Next slide. Ebooks, I didn't just make it up, that is our next slide. So, yes. One of the things that we were looking at also is in our learning commons, we wanted to start adding ebooks, and different libraries were at different places. Some of us had none, some of us had a lot. So we decided as a district that we all wanted to add ebooks to our collection. So we want to, if you have none and you want to add some, the best place to start is books that support the curriculum, because that way the teachers will use them. If you have iPads or laptops in the classroom, students can read those ebooks in the classroom, in centers. They can read them in the library, and it benefits teachers and students. And we started with science. So what we did is first we researched ebooks. What kind do we want to get? One of the things that we decided is we were going to start small. We chose one book per subject per grade for science, and a group of us worked together and we came up with the books that we wanted. We decided one of the things that was really important was a multiple user license, which means you pay a little bit more, so you can get an ebook that you can read it once and somebody will check it out. Nobody else can read it, and then it goes back, and it might be $30. But for $40, you can get an ebook that's unlimited. So you can have a group of 6 students. Like next week, we are having the tide pool come from the aquarium, and I'm going to have them in a little group reading the tide pool book. So I would suggest definitely getting a multiple user license. That's one of the things that we decided. Also, we had the input of the curriculum coordinators. We met with the science coordinator, and we're going to be doing social studies next year, so we talked to the social studies coordinator. Once our small group did the research, we brought it to the library department, and from there we brought it out. In the presentation that we did to the second grade teachers with the Super 3, the ebooks was part of it. We showed them ebooks that had to do with the second grade curriculum, and they were so excited. Like we're like, do you want this ramp book? Yes, we want that ramp book. Okay. They were really excited to have the ebooks to support the curriculum. And the results is most of us added ebooks. And it's different because we have different budgets, and we'll pretend it's all of us, close to all of us, added ebooks across the district, and we're still getting everybody on board.
Remember those varying budgets.
Right. The second grade teachers saw us as curriculum leaders, and that was really important. And next year we're going to do social studies. Yes?
So are you loaning out devices from the library, or?
No, so like in our school, I have iPads in the library that they can use in the library.
Yeah.
So when they come for class, they can look at the iPads in the library. And in some of our classes, they have iPads in the classroom. So in kindergarten, first grade right now, they each have 6 iPads in the classroom. And in the older grades, they have some laptops. And we have laptop carts and things like that. But that way, if I have the iPads out, they can all be reading one ebook at the same time in a center.
Did you, do students have accounts? Did you get into
No,
the
so
student
when the
accounts?
ebooks, when I purchase the ebooks, you get them from, I've gotten them from Follett or from, what's that other one? Capstone. And you can access it from my website, and so you need a password, and you just make it very simple. But they can access it, and they can read them at home also. And I say to the students, whenever I'm introducing it, I say, you can read this here, and if you have a computer at home, you can read it at home, or you could read it in a library, so they are accessible through the catalog and other places.
So like my second grade teacher just last week, they're starting Project Sun, Moon, and Stars, and she'll have all laptops in her classroom now. So and because she's accessing it through the and mine can go right through the catalog, you just click, there's like a, if you do it through Follow, you can do it. So it just opens, and so she has her whole class reading the same book at the same time, so I don't have to buy, 10 copies of it, and the whole second grade can do it at the same time, and they're all doing that same unit. They can all
So
have that
each
accessible.
class has how many?
In my school, we have, every school is different in how they do technology. So in my school, each classroom has a 5-pack of something. So it could be all laptops, or it could be the laptop iPad combination. Second grade has 5 laptops in their classroom, so she can have 5 kids. And we did realize that if you have some of those old listening stations
Yes.
with all the headphones and you plug it into a laptop, you can have like 6 kids all listening if it has things, so they can all be following along together. And so she can have, that's a station, and kids are doing that, and some kids are making a poster or whatever it is that they're doing that. So
Just curious, is your district, is that hooked into a library consortium? Are your catalogs connected together at all?
We're catalog connected, yes, throughout the district.
Like,
Yeah,
are you
you can
connected
catalog.
to like Minute or,
Yeah.
like I know in New Bedford, we were connected to sales.
yeah, no.
So I'm doing my secondary practical at Brookline High School, and one of the issues that we have is with the ebooks. In Destiny, when you go in, it says that we don't have any copies of the books, but it's because they're ebooks. I wondered if you had that issue. And
Oh, yeah,
students
so
will
it
come to
shows
me, they're
up-
like, why is this in
It's
here?
on
You don't have it. I'm like, well, it's an ebook, this is how you access it.
So we have, I did a lesson with my 4th and 5th grades where I showed them sort of like, here's how to find ebooks, and I said, oh, it just shows up different. And I was like, yeah, just the world is weird. And some of it would say there's 1 of 1, some say it's unlimited. It says it differently depending on who the vendor
There's like a
was.
little E icon.
So I taught them, we just did a quick lesson where I said, you look for this little icon, and if you see, and there's like 5 different icons because each publisher has a different one. And I was like, if it doesn't look like a book, it's probably, just see what happens. Click open it, see whether you can read it. And then I think the kids are actually pretty flexible. They're used to like technology always looks different. I think we're a lot more, it's different. And the kids are like, yeah, everything's different.
I think it's hard in high school, like not all the students are really routinely or consistently coming to the library.
Right.
So when they're faced with that, they're like, oh.
Yeah, so it's one of those, I said, well, click on, and the newer version, depending on what version of Destiny you're into, now when they see it, there's a little tab that says open. So even if it says 0 or 1, it says open right there, so I'm like, oh, click the open button. Oh, I'm next, so I'm jumping. I'm gonna stay here, so I'm going to be talking about collaborating and using technology to help you collaborate in your district. So, and how technology helps turn your library into a learning commons, with the idea that learning commons is really helping your children go from just being in this space, in the library space, to exposing them to that wider world that they're going to be reaching out to as they become digital learners and 21st century learners. And collaborate is a word you've probably heard us say 800 times already, and I'm going to say it 700 more times because it's key. It's just the basis of everything we do. So the first part is collaborating with your colleagues that we're talking about. And again, you probably heard us say a billion times that we planned this together and we had this meeting and we did that, and it's key. We're very fortunate that we have 15 different people in our department. So right away we have a PLC where we can be working together and planning. And if you are in a district where there are multiple schools, or you end up in a district with multiple schools, that's a great resource, because often as a librarian, you're the only person in your building by yourself. So reach out to your colleagues. And we use technology to do that all the time. We're a Google Docs district, so we heavily use Google Docs. I know they have it at Simmons, so if you're already familiar with it, it's a great way to share all your resources, sharing your lesson plans. We developed our department goals, which we developed all of this stuff using Google Docs and working together to collaborate on things as we were planning. We also are beginning to introduce LibGuides. We're rolling it out this year, we're starting to, and LibGuides, for those who don't know, is anybody here? LibGuides is a website development tool that is really designed for libraries. A lot of academic libraries, colleges, and upper level libraries are using it, and we're rolling it out district-wide. What the cool thing about it is, it's very easy to use and very user-friendly in terms of website development, but the cool part, what I'm bringing it up now, is it's very collaborative. So you can reuse tools. If I develop a great research guide for the 3rd grade Wampanoag project that they're all doing, Donna can just grab my box, put it on her page. And so we can have common resources shared across the district for the same tools. And it's part of, we're in the process of rolling it out this year. And again, it's using technology to collaborate with one another and work together on these projects. Technology can also help you collaborate outside of your classroom. So again, you're the only one in your building. I'm down in the basement. I'm sort of sitting there by myself all day in my space. You want to get the kids to see the library as that bridge to the wider world. Well, technology can help you do that. You can be collaborating with the classroom teachers and branching out, as we mentioned, the Super 3 project, so integrating that into the library learning. So if we were going to be doing a lesson on how to use the encyclopedias, and hey, they're researching this project, well great, we're going to pull that into the 4th grade civil rights project, and how do you use databases to find information about 4th grade civil rights. But technology can also help you reach out beyond your school. You could find a library buddy in another school and have your classes communicating with them on a regular basis. And blogs and Skype are great ways to do that. That's a picture over there of one of our library teachers' blogs. And her kids they regularly communicate with another library, I think in like North Carolina, where they're saying, well, we're doing poetry, and here's what we're writing about. And then the other kids are responding. It's sort of like library pen pals. But using technology to expose children to that wider world, that they're not just library competencies that reaching out, so they're not just learning in their own little space. They're part of this global community. And Skype is another great way to do that. You can Skype with other classrooms. You can also Skype. There are many, many authors who love to Skype with you. So author visits, you might say, oh, I can't afford to have them. They're a lot cheaper if you Skype. Some of them are even free. And we have some resources there where you can find that. The blogs can even be within your own school, within your own district. So this year, as part of our mock Caldecott, a few of the schools, I worked with 2 other schools in our district, and we set up a blog where the kids were talking about the various books that we had all in our mock Caldecott. So students in my school and 2 of the other elementary schools were chatting with one another, which also gets them. Elementary, we don't talk a lot about being digital citizen, starting to talk about digital citizenship, and you might think, oh, that's a middle school topic, or it's a high school topic, and I have, 9-year-olds, they're not doing that. But they are doing it, and we're teaching them more and more, so the more that you introduce them to how do I act online, and how do I behave in a proper way, you can start working that into your curriculum in a safe way, because you're controlling it, and they're not just sort of out there in the wider world. Okay, sorry. You also really want, when you come out there, to start collaborating with that larger community and with your parents. That's my principal, who's all that stuff, across America. Again, when you're first coming into school, if you're a student and you're coming into your school and you're coming in for the first time, you really want to reach out to the community, and it may seem overwhelming because you're brand new and you don't know anyone, and how do I get people in? You don't have to constantly, every day, pick an event and have the library be the center of that event that spreads out through your school and through your community. And it's really easy to find particular celebrations or activities that you can plan that around. Dot Day is Peter Reynolds' book, The Dot. A lot of schools do celebrations where everybody, you can get the art teacher involved, they're creating dots, and they're doing it across different parts of your curriculum. Read Across America at my school is a big activity. We have all sorts of people, the mayor came this year, it was very exciting, and come in and read to the kids on a special day. And again, it's something that starts in the library and branches out into the school and into the larger community, so the kids also see the library as the center of all of that that's going on. World Read Aloud Day, or again, we mentioned the Caldecott or the Newbery Awards. Kids love mock Caldecotts because you're just talking about picture books, and they get to vote, and they can do all these broader pictures. They really get invested in activities like that. So you're also talking about students collaborating. So we're not just collaborating with, as the teachers, the students need to be collaborating. And I brought this up a little before, but again, I really think you can start introducing these technology tools to help the students think about how they collaborate. That's a Padlet wall, is it Padlet? It used to be called Wall, which they changed the name of it. So I used that as a ticket out one day, and I said to the kids, you're going to go and post I think the question was like, what would you do if you were the president? I mean, it was a pretty basic thing, and they had to go post their answer online. But then we had to have a whole conversation about how do you behave when you're posting something on a wall, because this is public and you can see what other people are doing, and should your ticket out cover up somebody else's ticket out, and what kinds of language should you use. And it's a safe space, because I'm the only one, I can moderate it, that's not appropriate, but they're starting to learn those skills that they're going to need as they go out into the world, and they're going to have to start developing how to work with one another, not just here in the classroom, but out in the broader digital world. And the library is the center of that exposure to the digital world. So you might be thinking, okay, well, you're all collaborating, you have 15 librarians, and that's great, but I'm the only one in my district, or I'm all by myself. You can still build that PLC virtually. If you're in Student Now, you have this great community of people that you're working with, and I still am talking to people that I was at Simmons a few years ago, and I'm still, what are you doing? How does that project work? And how that we're still communicating. So reaching out through, so you've got that built-in community, but you can find, if you don't have that community, you can find them online. Twitter is a great place. There are regularly scheduled Twitter meets, thank you, meetups. MSLA, the Mass School Library Association, hosts regularly scheduled ones where people will be talking about a different topic on Twitter, and for just about any topic you can think of. Delicious and Digo are social bookmarking sites where you can join a group. Different people are posting suggestions and links. There are teacher librarian ones. There are ones dedicated to specific topics. Pinterest is I think our department is completely addicted to Pinterest. We're constantly on there. We're planning things on there. And whatever topic you're looking for, if you're, I need social studies, Mayflower things, somebody's put something up there, and you can find. I think we're planning our questioning process that we're working on now. We have Pinterest boards with pictures of questions and how to ask them. And other social networking sites like the Teacher Like Ning and some of the other groups where you can find a professional community. If you're all alone, you can find a virtual community to join. And then the last part of technology I want to talk about is we're trying to turn, as the library as a digital as a learning commons is also that innovation space, or maker space. So it's not just where kids collaborate with each other, they're also collaborating with technology. And we're starting to introduce some things on the my left, you're right. That's a 3D printer. 2 of our libraries now have them. For the kids to start exploring the library as a makerspace. I mean, a lot of people think that's just something they do in high schools, but no, high schools do. And on the left is one of our librarians with their robot that just came, and they can start learning programming tools and how to use technology to create things. And even something like QR codes, giving them projects that if you've got an iPad, we had them make their own, and then we posted it through the library, and they can take a picture and see a video. The kids think that's the most amazing stuff ever. So the more you can introduce that, again, they see the library as this innovative space where all kinds of cool things happen, which of course it is. So I talked really fast, I'm sorry. Does anyone have any questions? So I'm going to turn over to you.
All right, I'm up. So I wasn't going to share this personal information with you, but I'm handing over a cold right now. So I just had a cough drop in, and normally I would not do that before I was presenting, but I have had to. So I might have to take a water break in the middle of this. My apologies. So I am here to talk about how I'm here to talk about how taking an assessment helped us create our library learning commons. So we're 15 elementary schools, as was mentioned before, and we wanted to make sure that as we pass up our 5th graders onto the middle school, that we're all on the same level. All of our kids are learning the same library skills as we pass them up. So we thought, how are we going to do that? How are we going to get all this information together? So we decided that the best way to do that was to create an assessment. It took us about a year to do that. Not because it was that time consuming, but it's very just difficult to find time for all of us to get together. So we created an assessment. It was about 50 questions, And the way that I best describe them is they're questions that either fall under a umbrella of library research questions or a library skills or research questions. So like a library skill question would be something to the effect of, you have a call number, it's FIC, SMI. Where do you find this book in the library? Is it in the fiction section? Is it in the nonfiction section? Is it in the early reader section? That's a library skill question. And then a research question, such as, you need a map of Mexico. What sort of reference material would you use? Would you go to an atlas? Would you go to a dictionary? Would you go to a thesaurus? Something like that. So we created about 50 of these questions. We made them all multiple choice options for the kids to select from. And we've decided, how are we going to give this to them? We're going to create papers and pass it out to them, pencils, collect it all back, to figure out how many got number 1 right, how many got number 2 right. That's not how we want to do that. We're very fortunate that we have Google Docs, and I know you guys do too as well. So we put it into Google Docs. Populated all the questions, populated all the options that they could choose from, and put the link on our library websites, and we had all of our graduating 5th graders in June take this test, or assessment, I should say, not test, assessment. So we had them take that in June. We came back in September, and not only did we look at our own individual school results, we came together as all 15 of us, and we took a look at everybody's results, and we were looking to see if there were any sort of common threads amongst us in terms of areas that we could improve for our students. And one of the big things that we noticed, and we labeled it location and access. Our students, we were finding that our students could go to the computers, they could go to the online catalog, they could find the book that they want on the catalog. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, that's the book I want. And they get up, they don't know how to find it, on the shelf. It's like they didn't get it. So we came together and we're talking about it, and we're like, what's the big deal with that? Why is that so hard? And we're talking and we're like, there's a lot of steps to that process if you really think about it. So they have to look at the computer, obviously, but they have to see if that book is in or out. I can't tell you how many times I'm helping a kid find a book, and we go back to the computer and I'm like, buddy, it's not even here. Like, it's checked out. Like, we're wasting everybody's time right now. So they have to see whether the book's in or out. They have to locate the call number, the full call number. Sometimes they come up to me and they go, oh yeah, I'm looking for a nonfiction book. I'm like, great, what's the call number? And they go, 1992. I go, I don't think that's the call number. I'm like, I think that might be the year the book's published. I'm like, why don't you go back to the computer? Okay. So they go, look at the computer, and they come back and they go, oh God, how did you know that? They're like, mind blown. So, it's finding the whole call number, then it's understanding that call number, FIC. That means I have to go to that corner of the room, because that's where fiction is. But they'll be wandering around looking for this book. So it's reading that full call number, understanding that the first part is the location, and the second part, author's last name, or just kind of understanding alphabetical order. So we realized there's so many hurdles in the way that we had never really thought about before. So we decided that we needed to know exactly which hurdle that they were kind of getting tripped up. Is it every hurdle, or is it just a few? So we dropped it down and we created another assessment. Why not? So we targeted our 4th graders this time, and we chose the 4th graders because we were going to have a good solid 2 years with them, and we could track our progress with them. So we created a 4th grade assessment, and we created 2 different assessments. One was basically just a screenshot of pulling up a book on the online catalog, and then we asked them some questions down below. What's the title of the book? Who is the author of the book? What's the call number? I think we asked when the book was published. Is the book in or out too? So we asked them that. That was one assessment. And then the other assessment, each of us drew a map of our library, which was challenging for some of us. Some of us, honest to God, have 3 levels, I should say. So that was really challenging for her. But we all did our best. We created little maps of our library, and in each section we drew a blank line. Number 1, we gave them a word bank down at the bottom: fiction, nonfiction, early reader, biography. And we said, fill it in. Take the word bank, the word fiction. Where is it on the map? So we gave those to our fourth graders, took it all back, and we realized that one of the biggest hurdles was our kids didn't understand how the library was set up. They didn't understand that biographies are over there, fiction's over there, they just didn't understand it. So this kind of all comes into the learning commons because you need to create a library that they understand. So we were creating signage, and we had signage before, but the problem is that people like me, who are 5'9", were getting up on stools, hanging signs all the way up here, but the kids are like down here, and they're just looking at everything at this level. So even if we had signs up, we had them way too high up here. So we, using that assessment, seeing what the kids were, stumbling on, we were able to transform the libraries into the learning commons where the kids are walking in, and it's their space. We're designing the space for them so that they completely understand it. Thank you. So if you're not in a library right now, you're hopefully going to have that job come September or whenever. One of the best things that I think you could really do to help yourself out and to help your students out is to start off with some sort of an assessment. See wherever their hurdles are, and then transform your library to help them move over those hurdles easier. Any questions?
I just want to comment about that. The finding books on the shelf it's really hard.
Yeah, it is.
And I think when we're rushed and we're busy and kids are coming in and out, our tendency is just we go help them find a book.
I know.
And I've started refusing to do that.
Yep.
And it
Same here.
feels like I'm not doing my job, but I think it's a really important step to be like, you know how to do this. You can go, go get it on your own. And that,
Well,
it's really hard.
So for my fifth graders this year, in September, I did like a review of the catalog, review of the library, and I said, that's it, I'm not helping you anymore.
That's what I said
I go,
this year too.
you're on your own.
Yeah.
And
But you have to hold yourself to that because it can be hard.
I know, because when the class is lining up, and they're like, I can't find Jerry, we're gonna be kid, and it's
right in front of them.
So, but I had some great confirmation earlier in the year when I did that. I have a fantastic fifth grade classroom teacher who's honestly amazing. He drops the kids off and he stays for like the first 5 minutes. So he knows what the kids are doing in the library every single week. He's unbelievably supportive. And when he heard me tell the kids, like, this is what we're doing today, because I'm not helping you ever again, I looked in the corner of my eye and I saw him going, like, it was confirmation for me from someone that I respect so much in the classroom, for him to hear me say, I'm cutting you guys off. He was like, So that made me feel so good. So cut them off. Cut them off. I got other things to do. Come on, let's go.
I feel it as a big effort in my library, sort of my library skills to review at the beginning of the year. Because we have so much, we're finding so many, it's like a revolving door. Every day there's a new student and student.
That's how it is in my school.
So what I do is I end with what I call, this is a practical, where I give them cards and say, you need to find out with incomplete information, like the title of the book, or a book by this author, and then they have to do it both fiction and nonfiction. They have to tell them that their choices are to bring me those two books with the cards in them, or they could tell me that's not in, or they could tell me, whatever, maybe it's a new pair, whatever. And then in the reverse, when they come in, I give them, they start to help me shelf. I say today everyone's going to put back a nonfiction book, and they put them back tilted down. So they're sticking out.
Oh, yeah.
And they have to stand by their book to like go, yes, 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 yes. And then they can.
That's great.
they
So
can go
in the
with
past
it.
few years, it kind of ties in with what you were saying. So we, as a whole department, we've been targeting fifth grade, and then we've targeted fourth grade. This year, I on my own have really been targeting third grade, and I'm like determined that this is the grade. Like they are going to know this catalog, they're going to know this library, so that when they're in fourth and fifth grade, I can be doing what I really want to do, like reader's advisory, like giving suggestions and not helping them find books on the shelf. So that's something I personally am really trying to get with my third graders this year. So I'm spending a lot of time on it. But I'm doing things like that. I'm giving them slips, I'm putting them in partner. Right now I have them in partners, and I give them slips of paper with the title of the book and the call number. And you and your partner have to go find this book. And in next week or the week after, I'm going to give them individuals. You're going to be on your own. Go find this book on the shelf. And I'm just going to hang out and watch. And that's what I was doing. It was awesome. I was just hanging out, watching the kids move all around the library. And, you know, it's a quick assessment, because I knew I hadn't given any nonfiction books yet. And I had some kids over nonfiction, and I was like, ugh. All right, we're getting there. But we're getting there, but we're getting there, so.
I did my elementary practicum at Underwood, it's the one with the.
Yes,
Yeah. And so one of the assessments we did at the beginning of the year, when she was doing a review of the library, was having the 4th and 5th graders fill out cat slips, so it's the call number, the author, the title. Then they have to bring that book and show her that it matched up with the slip that they filled out. So then later, kids are, you know, I can't find this book. And Richard's like, the cat slips are there, next to the computer, look up in the catalog, fill out your cat slip and find the book. So just like having that assessment at the beginning, but then keeping those cat slips there
Right.
on the computer. So
And really
it was a form that they knew.
saying like, just keeping with it. So when they come to me and they need help finding a book, now 5th graders, they need help finding a book, I'm like, well, what's the call number? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, go to the computer, like, you gotta at least give me the call number. Like, you can't just be like, whatever, what you choose. Like, it's a lot of just standing your ground. You gotta figure this out. Empower children. Yes. Oh, I have a question.
I have just kind of a general question. I thought your presentation was awesome. I love everything you guys are doing. But I'm hearing a lot about research and information skills. Do you guys also do a lot of, you know, literature appreciation and things like that? And
Oh, yeah.
libraries, and how you mix it in, how you balance it? And
Absolutely. I mean, we do, you had mentioned the mock Caldecots.
Yeah, well, I spent a month where like everyone just, K to 5, we did picture books, that was it.
That's awesome. So you do
Yeah,
how
mock
the whole
Caldecots is the
school?
whole grade levels,
Yeah.
every grade was
Yep.
doing, I mean, and depending on the grade, like the 5th graders were blogging and voting and using Google Forms, so we were talking about those other skills, but it was all picture book focused.
And April, National Poetry Month.
Yeah, oh yeah, now they're doing poetry month.
Right.
Yeah, poetry month.
So you guys do a lot of libraries do the same, like, it sounds like, do you all do National Poetry Month? Do you plan that together?
I think a lot of us do a lot of the same common projects.
Okay, that's great.
We're also doing some things on our own, you know,
And
as well.
I think we
Something
did,
that we're moving towards is that we would have a few common events
Yeah, I
across
think
the
that's great,
year.
because not everyone's
For all
reinventing the
15
wheel
years.
all the time,
Yeah.
which I think can happen.
Because one of the things that I'm very aware of, you know, as the coordinator for the 15 libraries is, you know, I don't want to see it that's as big as Newton. I don't want to have some competition about this library. My library is this. You know, I'm very conscious of that. So when it's something that's very successful and has grown and more people are adopting it, I think that's when we start looking at, okay, what can all of us do? And a couple of strategic events, because the schools vary in staffing, they vary in size, they vary in schedules. We don't even, you know, there's just things that don't happen at the same time across the district.
Now, do you guys meet a lot, sorry, I shouldn't ask the questions, but do you
No,
meet a lot
please.
during that professional development time? Is that when you get together usually, or
Once
in
a
the
month, we
12:30
go-
dismissal time?
Once a month?
Once a month, okay.
Once a month, it's a whole department meeting, so we go to that.
We have a monthly meeting, and then also, like, with the reading group, they use one of those
Yeah.
Tuesdays to meet then. That still happens because they have collaboratively agreed on a common professional goal for students and professional. And so they're using that time, but also time, what they did is they looked at the cluster of time that was available within the school day so that they could collaborate with each other then in small groups to keep moving forward on the student and professional goal.
And kids are swapping books every time they come for lessons as well.
Yep.
So if you're
So
doing
you
like
get a
a
lot.
20-minute and 10-minute swing, yeah, that's a,
Yeah.
30 minutes is tight.
yeah,
It's a tight.
especially if they don't come on time.
And if I don't come on
Yeah,
time.
but getting the kindergartners to all line up is like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and getting the kids to line up or to settle down, sit down on the rug, I mean, that all takes time. Yeah, 30 is quite the time crunch.
So you all have the QR code, and you all know where you can access the handouts posted next week. But that also gives you access to, because there's a link offered there to all the elementary school libraries, and actually to all the school libraries. You'll have email addresses that you can contact any one of us if you have questions, okay, or any comments.
Some of the things you talked about, like the selection policy, things like that, in some districts that might exist, or, you know, not everyone has a director of the department. And I've worked in districts where it's like you are kind of on your own. So would that be available for people who needed it? Because
Yeah,
again, like you want to look at
Definitely, I'd be happy to
examples.
share.
You need to
And I'm
read-
not saying that it's not in need of updating, but it gives you something to start.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's something else that in the back of my mind that I need to revisit that and update it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm happy to share this with you. I'm happy to share the curriculums that we have.
Do you have,
I think it's a good starting place for anybody.
Absolutely.
I was thinking for people, because I think one of the difficult things with that basic library skills assessment, you forget all of the pieces of everything
Yeah.
that people need to know.
Because you know it.
And then when you trip over and go, oh yeah, that was it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yes, that will be posted as well, thanks to Margaret who got me a clean copy. That was the hardest part for me to track down, was a clean copy, but that'll be posted too. And what I'm going to say now is you've got about 10 minutes to take a lunch and meat break with each other, because I really believe that any time you're at a professional workshop like this, it is a time for you to talk with others and find out how they do something, or find out, do you have a selection policy, would you send it to me? Okay, so it's a time for you to really grow and to meet others and to get your ideas. Okay, so it becomes a makerspace here. And then we will move across the hall to Library Learning Centers. Jessica Lodge has rejoined our staff, and we're very happy to have her back. But she has really furthered this idea of a learning center in a library program, and she's done some great things. So, see you in 10 minutes across the hall.
That, so I would like to introduce Jessica.
Thank you for being flexible and being ready today. Today we're here to talk about library centers, and I'm very excited and honored to be back at Simmons. I graduated about 5 years ago. Today we'll learn what a library center's model can look like in an elementary school library and how you may be able to use centers in your library. I'll talk a little bit about my experience. I'll show you some videos and images of library centers in my school. We'll talk about the benefits. As you can see, there's centers for you to try, and then we can talk a little bit about how you might get started and some challenges you might face and how to overcome them. And then I'll give you a few resources that you can use in case you want to start centers in your library. Like I said, I'm a Simmons grad. I graduated in 2009. This is my 5th year teaching. I've been in 4 different schools in 3 different districts, but mostly that is due to moving to Connecticut last year and then moving back. So I'm planning to stay where I am, not go anywhere. I think Chris is happy with that. I've been using centers since 2011, so about for 3 years now. And I do blog at SIGLibrary.com. I talk about centers, I talk about different projects that I've done, what works, what doesn't work, ask for suggestions from readers. So you can check that out when you have the chance. In my current position, I'm at Memorial Spalding in Newton. We're a pretty large school. We have 430 kids in 21 K-5 classrooms. We have 4 co-taught classrooms, which is an inclusion model in Newton, where there is about 50% of the kids in the class are on IEPs or 504s, and there is a full-time regular ed teacher, special ed teacher, and either a teaching assistant or a grad student. We also have over 40% of our kids speak English as a second language. We primarily have Russian speakers and Hebrew speakers, but we have many other languages as well. And we're also a METCO school, so we have kids coming in from Boston who don't live in Newton. And in my school, I feel very supported by my principal and by my colleagues, as well as by my library department. They're wonderful. If you're not familiar with library centers, they are stations in your library where students can work independently or collaboratively on activities that support student learning. And I'm going to show you a little video. Oh no, sorry. I'm going to tell you about my journey to centers. When I was working at my first school in Newton, about 2 years ago, I was looking for a behavior management alternative. I was finding a lot of the kids were struggling to stay on task after they checked out books. I also had a very large ELL and special ed population at that school. I think part of it was the kids struggled to read sometimes, and what I was having them do is check out their books and then sit down and read their books. And it really was not working. I felt like I was nagging the kids. It was creating almost a negative environment because I was just hassling them all the time. So I wanted to try something different. I had tried rotating kids through activities during our Thursday afternoon program, which in Newton is when teachers have professional development on Thursday afternoons, and each grade level rotates per week, and the kids come to their specials. So we get them, Chris, how many times was it? 6 times or 5 times? Do you know? Sorry.
Help me make sure.
5 or 6 extra times
I think
during
it's
the
6
year.
times.
6 times during the year. So this week we had 3rd grade, and the kids came through library, PE, music, and art. So I didn't check out books, so I would have 30 whole minutes to educate children. Educate children. Because it's so infrequent, it would be hard to start a project and then continue that project months later. So I tried rotating a few different activities, and it worked really well, and I thought maybe that's something I could do during my book checkout time. I started Googling to see if there was anybody else out there doing something like that. And I found Carrie Young, and if you're not familiar with her, you should definitely check out her site. It's librarywinners.com, and she's also the author of The Centered School Library. And at the time, she was really the only person that I could find who was blogging or had a website about centers, and I was able to connect with her between my blog and her blog, and we became blog buddies, and I tried some of the activities from TAP, and then some of the activities from her site as a centers model during checkout, and it worked really, really well. The kids were very engaged and enthusiastic, and it really eliminated a lot of those off-task behaviors and behavior management problems that I was having. Since then, I've started centers in 3 different schools. They've had very different populations, and it's worked really well in each of the schools. And I highly recommend that you try them in your library. Right now, in Newton, we see our kids for 30 minutes once per week, which is not a lot of time. I try to teach a 15 to 20-minute lesson, and then after that, it's book checkout time. And after kids check out their books, they have about 5 to 7 center choices that they can do. In the beginning of the year, I only start with 3 or 4, but at this point in the year, they have 5 to 7 choices. I have a little video just to show you what it actually looks like in action. This is 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 5th grade. I don't know what the volume is going to sound like, so I'm
How's it look today? Oh my goodness, you're so fast. So that's what it actually looks like if you haven't seen anything like that. You could hear the checkout station going, so kids are checking out their books, and then as soon as they're done, they're picking one of those activities to work on. I've experienced a lot of benefits for students while I've been using centers. The little speech bubbles are from a survey I gave the kids asking them how centers has changed library from last year, what they like, suggestions that they have, so I have those scattered throughout the presentation. The main benefit that I've seen for students is that they're really engaged in their learning from the time they enter the library to the time that they leave. And as I mentioned, before I started centers, I had kids that were off task and that weren't using those precious 30 minutes that we have to really be engaged in their learning. It's given the kids a lot of opportunities to be self-directed learners. They're able to choose what center they want to go to, so they are in charge of their own learning. They become very independent. Each of the centers they can work at either with a partner or by themselves. They're able to feel successful because they're picking things that they like to do, and that really helped them. I also have more opportunities for differentiated learning. The boys that you saw doing the puzzle are very, very active boys. They can struggle sometimes to sit during our lesson, but then at center time they're able to move around and really get busy with whatever they're working on. And there are also some opportunities for collaboration and cooperation. I like them to see the library as a collaborative space, so a lot of the centers are things that they can do with other kids in the class. And they can work on being cooperative and working with each other. I also have a few more video clips of what kids think about the centers. This is I have a third grader and a second grader. And they videoed it themselves with the little puppy.
Hello, Mac. How are you today? Now, we have some questions to ask you about library this year and last year. Fire away. How has using centers changed library this year?
Well, instead of doing the things everything that the class, instead of doing all the things the class was doing, we get to choose what we're doing as kids.
That's nice. Now, how do library centers help you as a learner?
Well, they can teach us about different kinds of books and reading, depending on what they are. And some of the centers can teach us about a variety of things.
Okay. Which library centers do you like to use?
Well, I think I like the Brain Pop Center because once again it teaches you about a variety of things, and the Zoink Center always has some pretty cool questions.
I like the centers library because you get to do things and imagine and read and do everything that you think you can do with the library.
So the kids really like centers. They have a lot of fun when they're using centers. A lot of the kids who might not love doing exactly what everybody else is doing every single time they're in the library, they like to be able to have options and do things that address their needs and their curiosities. If you're not familiar with Brain Pop, it's a subscription-based website one of the kids mentioned. It has a lot of short video clips. They're animated and they are curriculum related. So I often have that as a choice that overlaps with what they're learning in the classroom. As a library teacher, I've also experienced a lot of really great benefits. One of them is that I'm able to extend learning opportunities outside of our 20, 15-minute lesson. I can connect to classroom learning, so like I said with Brain Pop. I have the kids watch videos of things that they're learning in the classroom. So second grade is studying China right now. There's an ancient China video, and that was their choice this week. And then in third grade, they're learning about biographies. You can choose any of the Brain Pop biographies to look at. They're also able to apply skills that we've learned and talked about. In the beginning of the year, we do a lot of our online safety lessons, and then throughout the year, I have different opportunities for them to apply those, whether it's on a blog or by watching a Brain Pop video to remind them about online safety or sharing personal information, things like that. I also have opportunities for assessment. I can have one of my stations be a must-do, and that's where kids can fill out an exit slip, a sticky note slip. They can do a Google form or a Padlet that Margaret mentioned. And then I think I'm able to try new things and fit more into a limited amount of time. One of the stations I brought today is weighted book origami, and that's not something I'd be able to spend a whole lesson on, but the kids can use it during center time and see what origami books we have and see how they can make different things with old book pages. And that's something we're probably going to incorporate into our decorations in our library. But again, that's not something I can spend a whole 20-minute lesson on. They have so many other things I need to talk about. I've been able to create a more positive learning environment. Like I said, when I first started centers, I had been feeling like I was nagging the kids to sit down and read, and I don't think that's something any librarian wants to do. and now I'm able to have more positive interactions with the kids, and our library is really bubbling and excited place to be. I also have more time to connect one-on-one with students. You saw some first graders checking out their own books, and the kids all check out their own books, so I'm not standing behind the desk scanning their books. I'm able to walk around and either participate in a center with them or help them find books that they're looking for, talk about what they're reading. And then I'm also able to learn what students' strengths are. Yesterday I found out that one of my second graders, who is a very wiggly friend who has trouble sitting through our lessons, is an origami expert, and he was able to be the origami master at the origami center. He was helping all of the other kids. He was really engaged the entire time he was at that center, and that's something I had no idea that he could do. I didn't know that he would have the patience to sit and do origami, but he does, so that was really amazing. Our library has also benefited from using centers. I'm able to have more connections and collaboration across grade levels in different centers. The big paper on the board over there is something I often have on a tabletop. I have my kindergarten and first graders on the same day, so I have first graders start that center, and then kindergartners can come in and see what the first graders have already done and then add on to that. I also have a blog for grades 3, 4, and 5, and the kids are able to talk about books that they're reading, where a fifth grader and a third grader might never cross paths to talk about books, but they're able to do that virtually in the library. Let's have more opportunities for creativity, things like origami, or I have a dot center during International Dot Day where the kids can create dots, and we decorate our library with that. And I'm also able to build a community of readers. With the blog, we have a blurb wall where I ask a question, the kids can talk about what they're reading, or I can ask them for recommendations, and we respond like on Twitter. You can see one of them says @Mrs. Lodge, and then they write what response to the question. And we're also able to write book reviews to post on our blog. So again, to create that community of readers. If you are going to start centers, I would suggest to start really small. It could be intimidating at first if it's something you've never done. So start really small with just a few centers. Each school that I've introduced centers to, I've only started with 3 or 4, while the kids get used to the idea of what a center of model looks like. This year especially, I focused a lot on routines and expectations. We spent a lot of time at the beginning of the year talking about what it looks like when you're working at a center. And I set up a few new ways to enable students to be independent learners, which I'll share in just a minute. And I'd also suggest having a cleanup routine that the kids do every single time they're in the library. And that way, when they come in, their centers look like this, and when they leave, they look like this for the next group. And also to be really consistent with your expectations and what it looks like at centers. It's also important to remember that it's an evolving process. My centers model looks different than it did a few years ago. It looks different than it did last year. Depending what building you're in, you're going to have different layouts, you're going to have different supplies and different technology. So it's going to evolve, it's going to change, and you're going to figure out what works for you. In our library, my expectations for students working at centers are that they choose a center from our choice board after book checkout. We've spent a lot of time talking about making a different choice if something is full. If there is not room at that table, you can find something else to do, and that center will probably be a choice next week. So I really haven't had kids arguing over centers or fighting over centers. Once we started using iPads, we talked a lot about how it doesn't feel good to have someone stand behind you and ask if you're done, if you're done, if you're done, if you're done. So we've worked on that, and I also expect students to be safe and respectful, which lines up with our library rules and our school rules. And then again, that students will follow our cleanup routine. This year, I started using music as my cue. In the past, I've turned off the lights, but this year my light switches are across the room, and it's really not convenient for me to go turn off the lights. So I started playing music, and as soon as the kids hear the music playing, if they haven't checked out, they need to check out. If they're at a center, they need to clean it up. And then I have them all stand behind a chair in our table area. That way they can make sure that there's nothing on the floor, that the tables are nice and neat. And then I hold up color cards that match the tables, and when a table's ready, I hold that card up, and they can go to the door to wait for their teacher. A few of the ways I've set up for independent learning this year are to have a center choice board. This is on my magnetic whiteboard where I project and where my smart projector is. And I put up little cards depending on what grade it is or what class it is. And it tells the kids which centers they can use and where they are in the library. So I very, very rarely have anybody say, what am I supposed to be doing or what can I do right now? Because they know where to go and look for it. The must-do up there is where I might put an exit ticket or a survey question or something they have to do before they leave. At all of my centers, I have a center sign, and it usually has just a few steps for the kids to remind them what they need to be doing. So an ABC Lego center, they can put the Legos in ABC order, or they can make words with the Legos. So it's just a good visual reminder for them what to do. This year I also started using a visual timer during checkout time. I saw this on a kindergarten teacher's blog, and he talked about how he used it during centers in the classroom. And so I tried it out, and it was really, really helpful for me because I can keep track of how much time I have left. The 30 minutes that we have flies by, and every once in a while I wasn't paying attention, and I should have had them cleaned up and ready to go where the teacher is coming. So it's a good reminder for me, and it's a good reminder for the kids. If they see that there's only 2 or 3 minutes left, they know that they need to go check out. They also know you might not want to start a puzzle if there's only 30 seconds left in the library. And recently the kids have started noticing the time and starting to clean up on their own without the music cue, which is really nice also. So it's been a really great strategy for me. I brought some centers, which I know some of you left over from the other room for me. And Ben, I think, gave everybody cards that have numbers on them.
I might have missed a few people that. Anyone that have a card?
So your number lines up with a center in the library, where normally I would give the children a choice. We thought it would be easier just to spread everybody out so there's not too many people at one thing. So if you look at your number and find the white card that matches, we're going to have a few minutes to try out different centers. If you've tried a center and you want to move on to something else, you can feel free to do that. There should be a center sign at each center, and I'm going to do the same thing I do with the kids. When you hear the music, you need to go back to your seat, and I'll put up the visual timer so you know how much time you have left.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Can I ask how much time kids generally are at centers?
It definitely depends on the class, and it depends on the kid. So, like I said, I aim for a 15 to 20 minute lesson, so we could have 15 minutes of checkout time in centers. Sometimes, especially if it's a chatty class, we might only have 8 minutes. And I also have an open checkout in the morning, so I have a lot of my 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders will come down first thing in the morning. And with independent checkout, the teachers do send them by themselves if they need a book. So I might have kids that aren't checking out because they checked out early in the week, they're renewing a book. They haven't brought their book back for 4 weeks. So I have a policy where if they bring their books the next day, they can always check out a book the next day. I usually only don't let them take out books if it's like 4 weeks of books.
Do you have a wireless wand, or how is your self-checkup set up?
I have a regular scanner, and it's set up to just scan when you put a barcode underneath it. I have kids have library cards with their barcode on them.
Yes.
And I used to pass them out. I did that in the beginning of the year, and actually it really helped me learn names. And now I just put them in a basket at the checkout desk. They find their own card in 1st through 5th grade. Kindergarten, I still pass them out.
By class or alphabetically?
I have them sorted by class, and then when the class is there, I just pass out. So if you want to find your matching number and go try out a center, again, you can circulate if you feel like it's Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm having so much trouble. But I like it. Should we have one big store? I think maybe the amount of somewhat because note comments. I would want to find the people who actually know because we have these files. I don't know. Which one is the one that's on the front? No, kids can't check these things out. Why? Because what? I'm like, oh my word, I'm looking at that.
But very late.
It didn't take that long. I told Leo that when he came, share projects like that. That looks amazing. I want to do the like grader. And the email, is it Abby?
I think so. That's a bit precarious.
But once you said it, you're doing it for a year. Well, like you said, like these. Just even the signs of the directions.
When you can tell where it's like things like.
Right. Well, and just.
Somebody will try to how to give the tech guy a heart attack. How many do you need?
Yeah, that was a big one.
Are all presented?
Yeah.
You're like, I can't even tell you. So
It's not. The way I made it, I actually was trying to make it original. But it's not. But I'll get it on there at some point. It's all.
Yeah, and you know what this is? Okay, but you know what the questions are? They're the assessment. So we use the assessment to make this. Erin Robert did it in my class. She made them when she was looking at the assessment. And they know the answer, but it's the assessment. And they do it, like I'm just like, as a so do you I actually all the time. So I sometimes really like take a lot of these make problem so take one of the
In my old school, I had this amazing comfy seating area, so I'm hoping next year to bring in some bean bags, maybe with my PTO money. But you can easily adapt this center and change it up. You could have props for the kids. I know other library teachers have whisper phones, but the kids can whisper and hear themselves. You could have fun reading glasses. You could have a theme like a campfire where kids read with flashlights, or beach chairs and have them pretend they're reading at the beach. Sometimes I put out baskets of books on a specific topic, like a holiday that's coming up or a season, or something I know that they're learning about in the classroom, and put that out near my reading center. Last year I started using a book buddy center, and I wasn't sure how it would go. I wasn't sure if the kids would get too silly having stuffed animal buddies, but they do a really nice job with it. And interestingly, my kindergartners and 5th graders are the biggest fans of this center, which I didn't expect. I have 5th grade boys that sit down and read with Curious George. And so I just have a bucket, and it's filled with stuffed animals. I get a lot of them, and my mom finds them at Kohl's. They have the Kohl's for Kids program where they have like a $5 book, and then they have $5 animal characters from books, or any kind of character from a book. So that's where I get a lot of those. And the kids sit down with their buddy and they read to them, and it's very cute. I have a little video clip of someone talking about the Book Buddy Center. What is something you like about centers this year?
About centers, I really like how you could do anything you want in the center choices because they're really fun. I One of my favorite ones are book buddies because I love stuffed animals and animals. So I think that's why I love them.
You could also use puppets, or you can ask families to donate stuffed animals from their homes. So it'd be really easy to set up. My pop-up book center is one of my favorite centers and one of the kids' favorite centers. I've collected pop-up books from tag sales and used bookstores. I was just telling someone the used book superstore in Burlington is amazing. They always, several times a year, have 50 and 60% off sales on their kids' books. So that's usually when I stock up. But it's just a crate full of pop-up books and the kids can read them. It's something that's always in our library. I have different crates throughout the library in odd spaces, so it's just always there. I don't take it out and put it away. I just leave it there and it's always a choice. You could easily adapt this with whatever kind of books that you have. If you have I Spy books or those really big books, or I'm starting a 3D book center because one of my friends has one of those and the kids really like it. So I've been keeping my eye out for 3D books at used bookstores. So again, it's really easy to set up. You just need to put the books out. My puzzle center is very popular across all the grade levels. In the past, I've done just a jigsaw puzzle on the table, and I put out books that match the puzzle. You will have books in your library that match any puzzle that you can think of. I do have some that are character specific or book specific. These ones up here are a fairy tale castle, Cinderella, and then I have different versions of Cinderella for the kids. And also this is at the bottom of my laptop cart, which is going to be an unused space, so it doesn't take up any room and it's always set up. I just rotate out the puzzles. This year I've spent a lot of time looking for floor puzzles because it does get the kids moving more than a jigsaw puzzle, and they really, really enjoy them. A lot of my puzzles I get at Savers, if you have been there. It's amazing. They always have Melissa and Doug floor puzzles for like $1.99 or $2.99. And again, you can match them to any book in your library. You'll find something that goes. My Book Buzz Center is where kids can write book recommendations. I've seen people do this just on paper and fill out like maybe a heart near Valentine's Day, like you'll love this book, or you'd be lucky to read this book and do a shamrock near St. Patrick's Day. Ours we put on our blog. So the kids either fill out a Book Buzz form that has the title, author, call number, and a little summary or recommendation. But my older kids use Google Docs and they just type it up and share it with me in Google Docs, and I copy and paste it onto the book. But this addresses reading, writing, language strands, and Common Core. And for AASL, it's really great for communication, connecting with other learners, social media, copyright. They can't just copy the blurb on the back of the book. And again, that's really easy to set up depending how you do it. I mentioned before that I gave the kids a center survey and asked them what they like about centers or if they have any ideas for centers. And I told them I was going to be talking with you, so these are the things that they said I should share with you that you needed to know about. One of them is Shelver, which my wonderful husband made for us. And the objective is students will put fiction or Dewey call numbers in the correct order. It's on my website, mrslodgeslibrary.com. And we have a fiction version, a Dewey version. The kids can either put 3, 5, or 8 books in order. I've used it with 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, but I've seen people on Twitter using it with 1st graders, so I don't know if I'm brave enough to try that yet, but I might later in the year. I have a student talking about Shelver.
Which library centers do you like to use?
My favorite is Shelver. Shelver brings books into the right spot, so it's easier to find them. So I like to do Shelver because I want to learn how to be a librarian when I grow up, because I want to be a librarian because I love books, and when I grow up I will be around books for a very long time. And also I like Brain Pop because it teaches you stuff about things you're curious about.
That's another shout out to Brain Pop. Kids really like that one. The most popular center, I think, for 3, 4, 4, and 5 is my Zoinks center, and he's over there. He asks a question of the week. I vary the questions, but almost all of them can be found in Pebble Go, which is one of our subscription databases, as well as from books in our library. And the objective is that students will answer a trivia question, and they have to use a library resource. The little slips are their answer slips. They need to add their name, their class, the answer. They also need to cite their source, and we don't count their answer if it's not cited. So this gives the kids a lot of practice using our databases or locating books in the library. I scaffold it from the beginning. I put out a basket of books, and they need to use the table of contents or the index to locate the answer. And then after we've talked about all the different online resources we have, they can use anything on our resources page on the library website. So the kids are really enthusiastic about it. I do give prizes. I count up the answers, and for every 10, I pick one winner out of a basket. And I have a box of old books. They could be donated books or things they get at tag sales or used bookstores. But the kids can pick a book. We usually have about 80 answers every week. Boggle is a center I never expected to be extremely popular, but the kids love it. I have a giant magnet board that I got. It's actually an oil drip pan from AutoZone, and I spray painted it. But it works great as a magnet board. I have a couple of them around the library. And it's just like the game Boggle. There's 9 letters, and the kids have to make words with them. And they keep track. Some of the classes love to see if they can beat their record from the previous week. So we have a string of sticky notes on our whiteboard that have their class record. The Did You Know Center is one of my favorites. It's very easy to set up. I just have little Did You Know cards, and the kids can use any library resource they want to explore, whether it's Pebble Go or Encyclopedia Britannica or books or an app on the iPad. And when they find something they think other kids might be interested in, they write down the fact, and then they cite their source at the bottom, and then we hang them around the library in an area that it matches. So if you write a fact about planets, we'll hang it in our nonfiction 523. If it's about a person, we hang it in the biography section. So when you're walking around, you can read just interesting little facts that the kids have found. I just tried this center in 1st grade. I had never tried it in 1st grade. I tried it in 1st grade this week because I found out the kids were making pictures of space in art class. So they were able to use the space section on Pebble Go to find interesting facts, and we'll hang those up with their artwork when we display them in the hallways. So I just have the kids working at it. They did a really good job. I told them that they do a good job, and they're really doing what's expected, that we'll be able to have this as a center, and I think they were really excited to do a center that they could usually do.
That's not water. You're like, landed in the water. That's not what's water. It's hard. Oh, so much stuff. Explain it. Look at the airbags coming.
What did you find out? What did you find out?
It's the brightest.
The sun is the brightest star? So cool, and I see that you wrote that there's 200 billion stars. Lev, what did you find out?
Jupiter is made mostly out of gas.
You can see they're really excited about what they're learning, and they're very engaged. So since they did such a fantastic job, it's something that we'll be doing next week also. And I think I'll be changing the topic depending on what they're learning in the classroom or in another subject like art. If you are interested in developing your own centers, there's a few suggestions I have that have worked for me. One of them is to use what you have. If your district or your school subscribes to different websites, it's great to have those as a center to give the kids some practice navigating them. We have BrainPop and Pebble Go, teachingbooks.net. We have Tumblebooks, and I just got iPads in our library, which is very exciting. But it gives the kids a chance to try different apps. We have Codable that they really like, which is a basic programming app. I use Drawing Pad a lot in kindergarten. They draw a picture of whatever it is that we talked about that week. And then any different kinds of books that you have that you want to make a center. It's all stuff that you would already have. Last year I was in a really small district, and I used a lot of social media to connect with other librarians since I didn't have a department like I do now. I connected with a lot of people on Twitter and with my blog and their blogs. I actually presented at ASL in centers with a librarian from Texas and a librarian from Virginia, and we had never met in person, but we've been working together in Google Docs and on our blogs and on Twitter. So that was a really cool experience. Conferences like this are really great ways to connect with other people and Pinterest, which I know Margaret talked a little bit about. You can adapt classroom centers. I know a lot of schools use math and literacy centers. A lot of those literacy centers are things that you could do in the library. You can always connect with whatever they're talking about in the classroom. If they're learning about an author, you could have the author's website if it's appropriate, or you can have books by that author, biographies of the author as a center. You could do themed book centers like holidays or special events, or Poetry Month. I'm going to have all poetry centers. You can use other people's skills if you know people who are crafty or handy. And as a web developer, and once he was transitioning to that career, he needed a project, and that's how we came up with Shelver. My mother-in-law is an amazing quilter, and she loves to do different projects. I saw the fabric letters. I saw these fabric letters on Pinterest, and she was able to make them for me. And the little kids love to put them in order or to spell their name. So use other people's skills if you know somebody who can do something for you. And ask the kids. On the center survey that I gave them, I asked if they had any ideas for library centers, and found out a lot of them would really like a writing center, like have a book that they can work on every time they come to library. So that's something I think I'm going to start. Some people wanted a debate center. Not sure how that would work. Fifth grader wanted to talk to a friend center, which probably isn't going to happen. But they do have really good ideas if you ask them what they want to do. I know like a lot of kids want a drawing center, so I might figure out how to incorporate our drawing books into a center. So it's really great to hear what they want. How much time do I have?
About 12 more minutes.
Okay. You can make centers connect to almost anything. I have lots of library skills, vocabulary, and content centers. I have research centers, ABC order. We do a lot of ABC order in the lower grades. I have letters like that. We have a letter of the week, and the kids can write and draw words that start with that letter. It's amazing what they've come from the beginning of the year in K1 till now. They're now drawing concepts or writing sentences, whereas in the beginning of the year it was whatever I suggested, like for C is cat, there's just all cats everywhere. But now with S, they had someone screaming with a speech bubble, they've had snakes, they've had different names that they know. So it's great to see them grow. In terms of reading centers, like I said, independent reading, any fun books, any specific authors. If you have ebooks or audiobooks in your library that the kids haven't really been exposed to, you can let them try them out during center time. And then maybe that's something that they'd be able to do at home. You could focus on different genres and have a whole mystery display or a whole fantasy display. Try different writing centers at the ABC Table Art. I've done library mouse books, if you're familiar with that book. It's a little mouse that writes little books and finds them in libraries, so we have little tiny books that the kids can make. If we have an author or somebody come talk to us in our library, I have a thank you note center and we could write thank you notes. Lots of spelling and letter recognition centers. Coming up, I'm going to be doing a lot of different poetry centers across the board. Lego poetry is up there. I've done tabletop poetry where I cover the paper like that, cover a whole table and put an interesting picture. And the kids write poems about it. They can add on to each other's poems, so that's a cross-collaborative, cross-grade level center. If there's any apps or websites you know that are poetry related, those are really easy to set up. The lower image is Storybird, and the kids were able to write poems using that on our smart board last year. Try to incorporate some problem-solving skills like puzzles. This is the Codable app that I mentioned, and then Brain Pop and Brain Pop Junior also have games. A lot of them are problem-solving and curriculum related. In terms of community and collaboration, another favorite center of mine is my library assistance center. And it's great if I can get myself organized enough to have something for the kids to do. This is 4th graders making the 3rd graders library cards. But the kids love to help. I have kids that will put books away. I have kids that will set things up for the next grade coming in. But they do really love to help, and if they put genre stickers on their books, or pull the genres, and then add the stickers themselves. So if you can get yourself organized enough to have that ready, it's really helpful for you, and they love to be part of the library and have responsibility in the library. Some challenges you might face are actually just getting started. A lot of the emails that I get on my blog are people just don't know where to start. And I said a few times, just start small and figure out what works for you and what works for your kids. And you just jump into it. I'm sure you'll love it, and then it'll just take off. Time and energy might be another challenge for you. I really like making stuff, so it's kind of like a hobby for me. But if it's not something that you enjoy, there's lots of stuff on people's blogs that you can just download and print out, or on Teachers Pay Teachers, things that are already made that you can just print out, and then you're not really doing any of the work, which is really nice for you. I do buy a lot of stuff for my library, but I try and get really good deals on things. I use like thrift stores or tag sales or donations. So I think there are ways to get around that. You could ask your PTO to supply, or ask other teachers if they have Jenga games or puzzles that they're not using. They might donate them to the library. You might be intimidated by your schedule, depending what your schedule is. And one way I think you can get around that is to find somebody who has a schedule that's similar to yours. The other women that I worked with for AISL have very different schedules. One of them has 900 kids, and she sees them for 20 minutes at a time and uses centers across the board from all grade levels in her library. I have 30 minutes, which isn't a lot of time to teach a lesson and to check out books, but it works. So if you find somebody that you can connect with that has a similar schedule, you can see what they're doing and what works for them. You might have a weird library space. One of my colleagues mentioned we have a library that's on 3 different levels. I had a library last year that had no windows, no wall space, and was really squishy. So I just try and find nooks and crannies that I can just put a center in, and it becomes part of the library. My cool books and my pop-up books are just in crates in a place that's not in the way. They're there all the time. They're always a choice. The kids know where they are. This orange magnet board is on an odd little wall that is like there's nothing there. There's nothing in front of it. So I attached a magnet board there, and that's a rotating center. I'm going to be doing magnet poetry there for April. And I use my office door for my blurbs, which are like little tweets. And if analyzing your space isn't your strong suit, you could always ask somebody to come in and take a look at it with a fresh pair of eyes, or somebody who likes to do stuff like that. Just be flexible. I leave centers out on my tables now. I used to not like to. I used to clean them up and put them out, clean them up and put them out. But the kids just work around them. They don't even notice that they're there if they're working on a project. They're very flexible, so just try and be flexible with yourself. Some resources on my website. If you do /Simmons, I put a bunch of like printable things, and we're going to put this PowerPoint up. I know Chris had a handout also to a new insight that has everything. Carrie Young is one of the women that I worked with on AISL. She's the center's queen. She's fantastic. LibraryLearners.com is her website. And Carolyn Bibbert is another one that I worked with on AISL, and she's at riskingfailure.com. They all do centers. They also talk about other things that are going on in their libraries. On Twitter, if you use the hashtag library centers, people post pictures of what they're doing or ask questions of how people make things work. When I was thinking about origami, I asked, and other people said, oh, I did try that and it worked really well, or like, I haven't tried it because I'm a little nervous because it's lots of stuff, but let me know how it goes. So it's a nice little network of people that you can get feedback from. And TLLM also, lots of elementary library teachers, and they have a chat that they do about once a month. Sometimes it's on centers, sometimes it's on other things, so those are some really great resources that help me, and I hope that they'll help you. Thank you so much for having me.
get the classes I can.
Yes, no, it'll all be up there. And on my blog, almost every center that I use, I just say how it went or what adjustments I made or whether the kids just didn't like it. I tried origami for the first time yesterday in back-to-back second grades. One class, every kid did it, and the other class like one. So depends on the class, it depends on the kids. That group likes their puzzles and their Shelver and pop-up books. So.
Can we use Shelver?
Yes. Yep, it works on iPads, it works on laptops. There's a full screen version, so it won't have any of my tabs.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.
I just wanted to say that, given the fact that everyone is always complaining about the lack of computers for their spaces, that I'm just so impressed with all the things that you've done that provide learning situations for kids without computers, because I really think the dependence upon computers in our society is a little frightening sometimes. I know there's a place for, I get that I was in technology, but it's a very enriching, diversified situation, and it's just great.
Yeah. I do, when I first started iPads, my kindergartners in first grade got a little crazy about them, so like some weeks I'll just put them away and we don't have them, and then some weeks I'll put half of them out and they take turns. So just figure out what works with which groups. But
And for some things, is it the number of chairs that dictates how many people can be doing independent reading, for example, or beanbags, or?
anybody can do independent reading anywhere in the library. The kids are really good at sharing, and we did spend a lot of time talking about it. The iPads is one per person, so if I actually have the younger kids set a timer, so they click on the clock and it's automatically set for 5 minutes, they click start, and then they do whatever the expected activity is, and when their timer goes off, they put it back to the home screen and walk away. So that helps them because they think they don't have any concept of time when they're using it. And they also, we've talked about, like, you can let somebody know that you're interested in using that center, but you're not going to stand behind them and say, are you done, are you done, are you done? We talked a lot about that in kindergarten, first grade.
I have 2 questions actually. So say they use an iPad for 5 minutes and there's still some time left, so then they can go back to the board and see if there's room and then.
Oh,
so
they can move
switch-
around centers, they can do, yeah.
And the Lego poetry, do you have kids who go over and just start building Legos and
Every once in a while, I do need to give reminders.
But it's actually
What's expected here.
Yeah.
What I do with that one is I let them, if they make a poem, they can bring it over to me and I'll take a picture on my iPad.
Oh, that's cool.
So that helps. I also I have the same, I have like the little 2-digit ones.
Yeah.
I have ABCs on those, and for K1, they either match upper and lowercase, they can write words, they can, it's really interesting to watch how they do the alphabet. Some of them will go across this way, and then this way, and then this way, or this way, this way, this way, or up.
Yeah.
So that, like, I'll take a picture. I think that helps them stay on task. They're not going to take a picture of nothing.
Right. That's cool. And you just take pictures with your own phone?
I have a school iPad.
The school. Oh, you just
So I
take
just,
the iPad?
I pretty much carry it around all the time. When I'm in there. Actually, we have a Follow app too, so sometimes I check out books on it.
Oh, yeah.
So if you just carry it with you, you'll end up taking pictures and videos.
You said you have different centers for different grade levels. How's your schedule that do you need to switch centers like throughout the day?
Throughout the day, I don't. I'm lucky this year because I have all my kindergartners and first graders all in one morning. So I'll put out table art for them, and but otherwise, the letters, the ABC Legos, the pop-up books, those are all things that are just part of the library. The things that go on tables, I do, like I would put away origami because I'm not going to attempt that with kindergarten this year. And Pictionary, like I'll just put it in my office or put it out of the way. I switch up the center choice board more than I do anything else. So a lot of it's just become part of what our library is.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. I want to give a very heartfelt thank you to Jessica, to Sheila, to Donna, to Heather, and to Margaret, and to Chris for coming here today, giving up their Saturday to come and present to us. It was absolutely fabulous. And it makes me feel just wonderful to work with colleagues like you.
So thank you. It's sincerely appreciated. And to the students in the room, this is what we hope you will be in 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the line. So these are wonderful role models for you. And as you know, many of these folks accept students for practicums. And so as you're thinking about where you might like to go for practicum, these are some folks that have been willing in the past to welcome you in. So I want to thank everyone for being here. This is always a really exciting opportunity for us here. And we have lunch at the Trussman Gallery, which is on the top floor of this building. So if you go out here and go into the lobby again and take a left, go down to just before where the stairs go up, get on the elevator, go to the top floor, and lunch should be all set up here and ready for us to come. Right after lunch, we're coming back here, and Jennifer Reed is going to do a presentation on Twitter and personal learning networks, which I know is really great because I visited that particular presentation when I was in AASL. So you've got something really great coming up in the afternoon. We also are going to have some, a scholarship winner from last year. Erin McCall is going to talk a little bit about her experience going to the American Association of School Librarians Conference. We give an award each year. We will be beginning the scholarship announcement today for the scholarship for next year, and that's going to be a trip to the MassQ. We don't have a big national conference going on this coming year, but we do have MassQ for 2 days, and so you will get an expense-free opportunity to go to that. So, because we're really trying to foster going to conferences as the place where we continue to grow and learn once we get out of the group. Okay, so I'll see you upstairs at the Trussman Gallery for lunch. Thank you.
I am. Yeah, I know. Thank you, they are. I agree.
All right, we're in for a treat, another treat today. We have Jennifer Reed giving our final presentation this afternoon. So good for you for sticking it out because it's really going to be worthwhile. She is a school library teacher at Mason Rice Elementary School in Newton also. And prior to this, she's also been an instructional technology specialist at the Cabot Elementary School, so she kind of sees both sides of that coin. On her wonderful blog, Readerama, she describes herself as a reader, techie, and blogger who loves using technology to capture the magic that happens when reader and story connect. And she's also an avid photographer. So check out her blog, and thank you very much.
Thank you. I think my colleagues are a hard act to follow, so, but a little different of an act. So I'm just going to talk about Twitter today as a personal learning network, and using it to really expand my network beyond my amazing colleagues. Because, you know, Jessica, you can see the two of us, we actually, even though there are 15 of us in Newton, we don't really have that much time to connect when we're not either meeting or there's not something like this happening and we're just passing in the night. So to have 5 minutes and look like, oh my gosh, that's great, what are you doing? I'm thinking of doing this, and scribbling notes down. So that PLN is fabulous, but this Twitter PLN allows me to broaden that one and feed it in a different way. You know all that. I do want to say you can find the presentation with a bit.ly, and the backside is read tweet, R-E-E-D-T-W-E-E-T. And Chris will also have this with the other presentations up on the Newton Public Schools site with the QR code that she gave earlier. And I was at home this morning changing this a little bit, tweaking always to the last minute. And I noticed there were people tweeting out, which was great. So the hashtag is MSLA SIG 14. It's always good to continue to tweet after a workshop or a conference to keep that conversation going. So don't feel like you have to do it when you're there, but you can come back to those things. This is one of the things I was tweaking. So Twitter is, what I did was I took a number of tweets that I thought really exemplified what Twitter has been for me. Twitter is all of those things for me, that it's really this ability to connect, to collaborate, to find information. You can put out a query, you can get answers pretty much within minutes. If you put something out there, there's always somebody who's checking their Twitter feed. And it has really allowed me to change the learning that's happening within my library space. A few quick stories. My favorite Twitter story was that I got this idea in my head that I should go to ALA annual, which I had never been to, and it was out in Anaheim, which I will just tell you, I didn't know what Anaheim was because I'm not a Disney family. I didn't go, and my children have not gone. So just a little silly thing, but I see it's in Anaheim, and I decide in the beginning of June I'm going to go to ALA annual. This is really going to change, you know, my professional life. So I book a last-minute flight. I land in LA. I don't even have transportation because I'm thinking that Anaheim is near LA, and I realize it's a full hour away. So I tap a random stranger on the shoulder, and it's like, how do I get to Anaheim? You know, like no idea. It was ridiculous. Like, it was not probably my best story in terms of showing my organization, but there we have it. So I find out there's a Disney shuttle, which is so great, and I hop on the Disney shuttle, and I get there, and I get to my hotel. And, you know, I just flown out there. I hadn't even connected with anyone. And I look at my Twitter feed, and I see that some of these people that I've just sort of new connections with are all meeting outside the exhibit hall, the opening of the exhibit hall, to go get Wonder, because at that point Wonder was just coming out. So I'm looking, I was like, oh my gosh, friends! You know, I've never met any of them, but they feel like friends. So I go running downstairs, and I find them outside the exhibit hall, and it just was the best experience. We were hugging. We had never, none of us, I mean, they hadn't, a lot of them hadn't met either. And from that point on, those particular 6 people just continued to be probably my tightest PLN because of our experience there. And a lot of us, it was our first time, so we were really supporting each other. From that came a connection, Library Pals, with a library teacher in Minnesota. And we've not been as good blogging this year, but we started last year with our first graders, and they blogged almost every week, every other week, back and forth about what we were learning, asking each other questions, sharing what we were learning about books and the library organization. So it gave sort of an authentic audience for both of our classrooms. And this year it's been a little bit harder just connecting-wise, but we decided to stay with those first graders and all the way through 5th grade now. So we hope then really by 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, there'll be primary source resources for each other for getting information and doing research. So, and then Picture Book Month, which is November, which is just a really great opportunity to Skype and connect, and Skype in the classroom have all just been really good Twitter resources. This is an example. I'll save that. Sorry. Don't you love that when something works at home and then you get here and it doesn't work? Oh, I'm so sorry. They're all there and I was just being silly. All right, sorry. So this is World Read Aloud Day this year. And World Read Aloud Day for me, I decided to move it past a day and actually make it the entire week and form my instruction around it and the learning in the library the week before, the week of World Read Aloud Day, and then the week after in terms of assessing and reflecting. So you can go back, I won't, but there's an anecdote just of the different Skype sessions. Students were creating Wordles about why reading aloud and reading were important to them. These were all the different books that we read as we connected with other people. But here was and this is a new Google beta tool that I played with, the Tour Builder, which is quite fun, but very time consuming, I'll warn you, so I really only started, the whole tour is there, but I haven't completed it with all the images, but you can put in pictures and descriptions. So for instance, I won't play the whole tour, but it will go to each place and then I put an image in there, and so I was liking that better than Google Maps. But you can see our Google tour, my goal next year is to hit every state, but we were really bopping around the country, and here was my schedule of different Skype sessions, and I'm telling you, my Twitter just exploded because you were constantly, we are talking Eastern Standard Time, right? Central Standard, whatever, it was so crazy because we were so afraid we would mix them up in the midst of all that. But it was a really wonderful week and wouldn't have occurred if I didn't have my Twitter PLN to be able to reach out and say, anybody want to Skype? I've got second graders at 12:30 who's available. And it got to be so big that we actually created a Google Doc that we use to organize all the connecting. The next one, you can watch at another point. I just put it up there, but it's John Schumacher, Mr. Shu Reads, and my students reading poems for two voices together. Not this year on World Read Aloud Day, but the previous year, and I think it really shows the power of Skype in the classroom also. All right, so this is Matthew Winter, who's part of this Twitter PLN. His is a busy librarian. He runs a podcast. He interviews different authors. They're fabulous. They really give me information in terms of when I'm working with the books from that author. But here he is talking about Twitter.
Hi, my name is Matthew Winter, and I'm an elementary school librarian in Elbridge, Maryland. And I'm here to spread the good word about Twitter as the perfect tool for building your professional learning network. I've been using Twitter for a couple of years now, and I can't say enough about the great people that I've met through Twitter, the amazing collaborations that have been able to take place, and just the experiences I've been able to offer my students because of Twitter. It's a massive collaboration tool. When educators got a hold of Twitter, they really did something great with it in the way that they're using it to share resources with one another, to continue discussions about ways that we can better help our students, ways that we can use technology, all of these great things. The conversations that you want to be having are happening online right now. You have immediate access to professionals and experts when you're on Twitter. They're just a handle away, and many people are willing to respond directly to you. Authors specifically have been fantastic to meet on Twitter. And knowing for you that you can be lurking on Twitter, just watching what other people are saying and doing, or you can choose to take an active role, and it really doesn't matter in the beginning. It's so much information that it's just a great place for you to start absorbing and retweeting and favoriting things and using it as a way for you to curate your resources. Make sure you make good use of hashtags. Hashtags are that number sign, that pound sign, followed by a word, and that allows us to curate information on Twitter. Things that, tweets that share common hashtags can all be pulled together, and so we can hold on conversations with one another, including great chats like TL Chat and Title Talk and Ed Chat. These are just a couple things that I love pulling together so that I can continue to build my PLN and to meet great people like you.
So Matthew's great. And I will say that Ann Ursu visited our school in the fall, and the students have been reading her books, and they've been continuing to come up with questions, and so I've just been shooting them out on Twitter, and she's really quick about getting them back, which is wonderful. So he's absolutely right. The author connection is very powerful there. So creating your Twitter identity, I always say don't do what I did, because I should have branded myself, and it's not really that I'm that great, but I'm Readerama on my blog, and I'm Library Reader on Twitter, and I wish they were the same, but at this point it's far too late to change them. So Readerama is my blog, but my Instagram is Library Reader, and my Storify is Library Reader, and my Twitter is Library Reader, and so all these other social networks, I've decided to go in that direction, just keep my blog separate at the moment. But do create a username that makes sense, so that when people see it, if you're connecting, they sort of know, oh, I can tell who's really coming from a library background, or who might be, some people even put author in the back. A lot of the authors now say, like Deb Burrows author, just so you know who it is who's trying to connect. And it saves characters, do keep them short. I think Library Reader's a little long. I might have, been wiser about that, since I really like to tweet and I tend to be wordy. but do keep it short. Oh, I want to tell you a great story. And don't be an egghead. That I don't really accept any friendships from eggheads. It's just in general. So my Storify has a picture, my Instagram has a picture. I'm actually trying to make them the same picture, which is another thing, which is a really old picture, but it's the easiest one to have right now. Create a description that captures your interests. And probably be more concise than I am, but I do get people tweeting back to me saying, really liked your bio, because, trying to sort of show people what I'm interested in. And the last one I think is important, but I have so many friends whose background images are beautiful waterfalls, but who work in libraries, but for me, I think it's so much, the clarity is just great. If I go and I see books in the background, I was like, okay, I definitely want to connect. There's somebody who's really passionate about literature as well. So there's mine. And I wanted to show you that I changed it, and I'm going to probably change it again. And I didn't change it that much, but I changed the background, but I'm really not happy with the background. I sort of wanted to show my library more. So I'm going to have to keep taking pictures and see. But the other thing that I wanted to just show was how prior to AASL, I had 7,000 tweets and following 1,000 people and 1,400 followers. And even though the last few months have been busy and I haven't been that active, I have 10,000 tweets. I don't know what I think I have to say, but there we go. And my followers are jumping, and I'm really trying to build that PLN. I originally had wanted to keep it small and wanted to know, I didn't want my feed to be that big in a way, and but I'm now changing that and moving it towards broadening that scope. All right, how many of you have Twitter? Everybody. I'm talking to the converted. You can just take this and share it with anybody in your department, in your district that you want, and you're welcome to whatever. It's even take on the AASL, but don't listen to it. It's terrible. So I'll leave this here because if you do go back and you want to use this presenting to anybody in your school, to your faculty, or to teachers one-on-one, please feel free to buzz through the parts that aren't interesting. But this will have all the instructions on how to sign up for Twitter along with the links. An example, this is the example of signing up on a laptop. On the phone, of course, it looks different, or the iPad. So just warn anyone who might be on another device. And then I was telling people, haven't tweeted before because sometimes even just knowing where to type in is intimidating, to compose a new tweet. So that's why I highlighted that. And then in helping people at AASL to really enter the fray, which that day we had a lot of people who hadn't, and it was fun to see that happen. Here's a quote I won't read, you can read it, from another of my PLN members. So it sort of goes along with what, is it Erin? Erin was saying, because Twitter doesn't just give me all the really great information on technology, it's a really wonderful place to connect over something you're reading. And so I tend to pay attention when somebody says, oh, I just read. Right now, it's on my bedside table. Natalie Lloyd, name that book, 2 characters. Oh gosh, that's so terrifying. It's blue with purple and green on the cover. And I could not pull up the title. But I grabbed it because I'd seen it on so many people. A Snicker of Magic. Snicker of Magic. I grabbed it because so many people were tweeting about it that I wanted to pick it up and read it. So who to follow? So finding relevant users to follow. Look at who Twitter suggests. I do always, Twitter keeps on changing their interface and really trying to build their network. So they now, on your Twitter feed, you'll sort of interrupt your Twitter feed to say, here's who to follow, or now I get the tweets which says, Jennifer Reed and 21 people just followed Fran Zalonis, you know, and then you can go and follow Fran Zalonis with all the other people. So they're giving you a lot of suggestions that will relate to what the people that you generally tweet with. You know, I will go in sometimes and look who my colleagues are following and just pick up other followers. And then searching for leaders. So you know, somebody, if I'm at a conference and I hear someone, or there's a professional development person that comes into my district, I'll connect that way. And it's like the shampoo commercial, and they found two friends and they found two friends. So I'm dating myself again, but nobody will know it but the women. It's the really great shampoo commercial, and it keeps on multiplying. But that's what will happen, is that you'll build your network so quickly once you do this. And this has just another example, and you can, all those are active hyperlinks, and you can click there and build your network. And this is my friend Laura, who's my Library Pals partner from Minnesota.
Hi, I'm Laura Gibbon, LibLaura5 on Twitter. Way back in 2009, I joined Twitter when I heard people talking about it, and I just didn't get it. Then, a year later, at my state conference, I heard Kathy Jo Nelson talking about how Twitter changed her professional life. So I decided to give it another chance, and this time I had a purpose. I started following leaders in my field. I followed ed tech leaders, I followed book lovers, I followed teachers and librarians, authors and illustrators. And what I found was this amazing community of passionate and generous people. I love my Twitter PLN. I love that I've built relationships with people who share my passions. I love that I can tap into my PLN's amazing depth and breadth of knowledge when I have questions. And I love that they push me to continue growing professionally. I'm a big introvert, and before Twitter, I never would have thought of attending a conference such as AASL or ALA on my own, let alone presenting something. But with my supportive PLN network, I feel I can take on more professional challenges. Thank you, PLN.
So, and she's now my roommate. She's one of the people I met outside that very first in Anaheim, and now we room together at every conference. So, I had just put out actually a tweet saying, anybody want to give me like a 2-minute snippet as to why? And I was asking, you know, talk about hashtags, talk about this. And so these were the first people to respond back, but she's like, my children are just gone to bed, so I was downstairs kind of whispering, because she's not always kind of quiet. All right, so, sorry, just because I always like everybody to get my puns, the folk song, come, follow, follow, follow. Yeah, okay, so no, I won't sing the whole song for you, but that's where that comes from. When you do want to follow someone, or somebody's followed you and you want to look into them, please do read their descriptions, read a few of the tweets. There are quite a few people that have followed me that I don't really want to follow because their tweets aren't really ones that I'm interested in reading, and there's so little time. And so, not that they aren't great people, but I don't think they're going to feed me professionally. And I really do use this only as a professional network. It's good to see who they follow and who follows them, just to see, because the tighter that web is, I think the more powerful it is as well, you know, when you start to connect and connect. And I put up Anita Silva because she's so awesome. And I love that. Author of Everything I Need to Know. She's just if you don't follow her book a day almanac or check in every day, I think it's such a resource for teaching. But, you know, you can see who follows her, and you can even then check and see who she's following, so all of her information is available, or anybody's, when you're on Twitter like that.
Jen?
Yes?
Question about when people ask to follow you. I don't do a lot of Twitter. I have strippers follow me. You say you look at people who are following you. Do you just, you know, clean them out, or
yes,
just
yes, and I'll show you that. I'll go in. Because you know, the strippers don't really feed my personal life. I know.
Gonzalez does have really interesting tweets.
Exactly. Well, that's it. Like, there's some people that I had some guy from somewhere, you know, I don't know. Let's say it was Amsterdam, follow me the other day, and I just couldn't figure out why he was following me, except that there must have been something, or he just wanted to have 20,000 people that he was following, I have no idea, but I didn't follow him back because it wouldn't do anything for me, but I'm going to talk about how to avoid the spammers in the next one. You will, on Twitter, this will come across your feed, you know, and a number of people just followed you, and that's what I will do, and I'll show you, is I'll click on each one and just see who they are, see if I want to follow them back. Twitter didn't used to do this, and this is a nice way. You used to have to kind of go in a long way and look at this really, and now, if I do it every 3 days, it's just a quick 5 minutes to go through and then add them to my network or not. Sorry, one more quote. So, no, yeah, Sherry's another really good friend, and it's a good reminder for me that I forget that I work in Newton with 15 elementary school library teachers, plus, of course, our teachers at the middle school and high school level. And I forget that in Massachusetts, we're really close and so well networked, and we have, you know, MSLA and all these other things that really bring us together. But my friends who are the lone librarian in a town in the Midwest, you know, that Twitter for them becomes really important. And I put that up because this was yesterday. I tried the Hour of Code. It was so much fun. I don't know why I waited so long. It was fabulous, and so I tweeted it out. And that's what's so powerful, right? Shauna Ford, who I tweet with and Skype with often, and Sherry Gick were right back. That's that affirmation, right? And then finding out, oh, and here's another resource. Oh, she didn't mention it there. And another one, she mentions a different resource that she uses as well for Hour of Code. After people, and you're sort of, and I don't know where that other, the spamming one, if I lost it, we'll go back to it. Because I wanted to show that. Well, oh, maybe I think it might be later. Does anybody watch Wait, Don't Tell Me or listen to it, I mean? Yeah. I use Peter Sagal as an example because I figure he's so funny. That's somebody I do follow. It has nothing to do professionally whatsoever, but he's very funny. So hashtags then. So some school library favorites, there are so many hashtags, and I just made up a hashtag with some people this morning, which is the other really great thing about being at home, and I want to show you this Twitter conversation. But John Schumacher had put out a tweet last night. He was presenting West Palm Beach, and something like, I am so glad I went to library school. And that a lot of us then started to share our stories. And so then we decided, oh, we should come up with a hashtag. And so I came up with WhyLib, hashtag WHYLIB. So if you want to share why you're in library school or how you came to be what you're doing today that has to do with school libraries, then add that hashtag and join the conversation. So hashtags are always being created, but of course there's some really well-established ones. IMWAYR, it's Monday, what are you reading? I tried to do that this year, just every Monday, just put out a quick blog post or a quick picture of what I was reading and with the hashtag, and I'm not really good at it. So that's really a summertime thing for me, but it's great to go in and follow the hashtag and then see what people are reading. Of course, Anita Silvey's Book a Day, Sharp Shoe, Colby Sharp and John Schumacher run that Twitter chat book club. Oh, I should have put MSLA in there. I put it in another thing. Sorry about that. It's in there in the next slide. Kidlit, Title Talk, Teacher Librarian, Elementary and Teacher Librarian Chat are ones that I follow, and we'll show you on TweetDeck how I have them. You can also click on these links later, and there's just pages and pages of hashtags that you can follow. So if you're really interested in ed tech or high school, middle school, you'll find a hashtag in a group for every interest. This is Margie Myers-Culver. She lives in northern Michigan. That poor woman, she's still got 6 feet of snow, I think, on her deck. But she does this fabulous thing for the rest of us called Twitterville. I'm just going to forget. It's Twitterville Talk, maybe it's just Twitterville. But she curates all of these tweets from the entire week into one great storify that she feels like best represented the conversations that were happening on Twitter that week that have to do with elementary school library teachers. So You can find it on her librariansquest.blogspot.com. She always runs it there. And you can click on this link later and it'll bring you right to it. But she's fabulous, and it's such a great thing that she does.
The ALA annual conference and exhibition in Chicago this summer was an opportunity for me to meet so many wonderful virtual people face to face for the first time. It was exciting because when you tweet with these people for weeks and months, it's almost like you know them. So it was just great. Now, Twitterville Talk, I just posted my 124th Twitterville Talk this weekend that I'm making this video, the first weekend in November. I originally started it because there was just, whenever I was on Twitter, there were so many good things on there that I wanted to share with other people, and I thought if they're not on here, they're going to miss all this good stuff. Because when you're a librarian, that's what you want to do. You want to get resources that you discover to the people that you know are going to benefit from them. So that's initially why I started Twitterville Talk. And the way I select things to include in Twitterville Talk is that I constantly am checking the feed during the day, and I'll put things that I think might benefit the people that I think are reading Twitterville Talk. I favorite them, and then I go through all those one by one. I read all the articles, I watch all the videos, just to make sure that they're going to be the kinds of things that I think will benefit the people that are readers of that particular blog post that I do every week. And I try to include special tweets and quotes at the end of Twitterville Talk that are really upbeat, sometimes funny. I'll put dog pictures in there and say that Zena's stuck on my computer. I just want to keep everything upbeat for people to read when they hopefully have more time to relax on the weekend. And that's another thing I wanted to add about building up your PLN. I try to be extremely polite and courteous when I'm on Twitter. I try to support people when they post that they've written something for their blog. I try to respond to that because I know what it's like to take time to write something up, and then it's thrilling to think that somebody that you're following on Twitter is benefiting from that and that they acknowledge that. So that goes a long way to building your PLN.
I think she might have cut off or cut her off. So she is probably the nicest person on Twitter. So she's at Level Zena, which is her dog. And she will constantly, no matter what I put up, she reads it, she comments back. I know she's read it because she'll quote it. But she is just a very, genuinely, very nice person and a great Twitter friend. So learning the lingo, there isn't that much you can really work with just some basic lingo, but I did attach a few different resources that will help you with the Twitter dictionary. But some of the most common would be FF for Friday Follow. So you'll see people will put out, Friday Follow, library peeps, and they'll name a number of people. And then if you see that, then that person is really recommending that those are people you should add to your PLN. So it's pretty safe to go through and do that. I loved this one I just put up for fun, which was the TLDNR, too long, did not read. So, and I think when people are honest about something, it's really great. So there are some really great articles that come across my Twitter feed, and they're, 3 pages long. And so you don't, so you want to be honest about it. So if you're going to retweet it, to give it a too long, did not read, I think this is going to be good because I read the first paragraph, but I think that's helpful. RT is a retweet, so if you're going to retweet someone, that will show up automatically if you just retweet, but if you're playing around with a tweet, you can add that. MT is a moderated tweet, so if you have to change somebody's language, that's just professional courtesy to say that you've moderated their tweet so that people are aware of that. And DM is a direct message, so you'll see that a lot when people want to share their personal information, like their email address, or if they want to connect and it doesn't really need to show up on everybody's Twitter feed, but you're trying to plan a spec visit, they'll say DM me. So. Matthew Winter talked about sort of curating your tweets and really your curation tools, if you're just on traditional Twitter, are all right there, and we'll go through them. So the favorite is probably the easiest curation tool, except for I feel like my favorites are so long to actually go back to find one that I favorited 2 weeks ago would be far too long. Which is why Margie's really great, because it's probably in her Twitter Real Talk and I can find it there. And obviously the reply, if I'm on Twitter on my laptop and I retweet, it doesn't allow you to add a comment, but if I'm on different of the aggregators, which I'll show you, then you can comment when you're retweeting. If you're under the Me on your Twitter, you can see your tweets, you can see who's following you, you can see your followers, your favorites, which mine's very long now, and any list you might have created. So if you haven't gone back and you want to see who's following you and see if you might want to follow them, you can go through that way. So as an example, if I clicked on the people that were following me, I can see that I chose to follow Barbara Phillips, but not Teresa Wells Taylor, and I think I just did as an example. I don't think I have anything particular against Teresa Wells Taylor up there, and probably followed her by now, but I just wanted to show that it's that easy. If it's spam, and I'm going to come up to that in the next couple of slides, we'll deal with it under the little person. Lists. You can take someone else's list and just make it your own, which is great. You can subscribe to another person's list. You can grow lists. You can shrink them again. So Ed Camp Boston last May, that was a great list to just have, because then I could tweet out even to that list if I wanted to specifically find out about Ed Camp, or if I wanted to ask a question that had happened at that Ed Camp. And I should grow that area, but it hasn't been as much of a priority for me because I don't use Twitter that much to blast out. I just blast out to the whole group. But if you could create one that was just specifically maybe Simmons students. So if you wanted to just hit the people that you're seeing on a daily basis and not send it out to everyone, you could do it that way as well. Under the App Connect, you have your interactions and your mentions. So if people are mentioning you, it'll show up, but then if there are conversations, that will show up in the interactions. I have mine always on the interactions because I like to see the whole conversations that I'm having with people when I go to my App Connect. And the Discover, and this is where you can, as a school person, I don't use this as much. You can look at just generally tweets that are out there. The current big activity, which tends to be, things that aren't really related to my professional learning network. They'll suggest who to follow, but I'm finding they've really embedded that into my Twitter feed, and so I'm not needing that as much. And the people that I follow, I generally pick up now through Twitter conversations that are happening, that somebody else will jump in a conversation and I'll check them out and then add them because they'll obviously be interested in that subject. You can find friends and you can connect, to your Gmail or any of your other accounts or Facebook if you want. I tend to want to leave all my things in little silos, which I don't think is the best. I mean, I know a lot of authors have connected them all, so they just send out one tweet and that Twitter then shows up in their Facebook page and then shows up on, but I'm liking my life being a little bit separate right now. So here, all the way back finally, Robin, blocking tweets. So there are spammers, and I get my fair share of strippers and other people. I think it's, I was going to say something, but I won't. If you want to block a new follower, oh, sorry, I forgot to put on it. Once you open up the drop down underneath that little silhouetted head, will let you tweet to that person, add or remove from lists, which is great. You can block the person and you can report for spam. If you report somebody for spam, it automatically blocks them. So I report for spam now because I figure if it's really going to be this great tool, the more people are reported and the less likely, hopefully, they'll keep on trying. You can turn off retweets from a person, turn on mobile notifications from people, which is no, and then you get every single tweet that they get keeps on coming on your phone. And you could embed that person's profile, but I don't know why you do that unless you were doing a presentation. But he is really funny, so I suggest you follow him if you just want a good laugh across your. So the aggregators, this is my favorite part of Twitter, and there are a number of aggregators, and it will really depend on your personal learning style. But there's TweetDeck, which is my favorite. I did try TweetChat for a while, so if you're in a Twitter chat, it's a way to follow that chat easily. Tweetcaster, I have on my phone and my iPad. I don't like it on my phone, so I don't even go on, and I just use traditional Twitter on my phone. I don't know why the mobile devices, and I can't answer this question, but the mobile devices are so much more, what's the word I want? Agile is the wrong word, but you can, you know, when I go to retweet on my phone, I can actually moderate the tweet. If I retweet, as I said on my laptop, it doesn't let me edit it or do anything, unless I'm in TweetDeck or one of the aggregators. Flipboard will help you pull in any news that you want. Hootsuite lets you follow hashtags as well, and Zeit is another magazine piece. I won't click on them, but I'm going to show you my favorite, which is TweetDeck. So TweetDeck then, and I won't pull up regular Twitter because most everybody has it, but TweetDeck then, and they changed it, and I really like the new interface. But you can move all these different columns around, and so I had home, I had mentions, so I can see if anybody is mentioning me and I want to connect with them. I love the TLLM, I think that's just a really great hashtag, so I follow that one. Then I have TL Chat. MSLA, Amy Short, who runs the chat once a month, which is really great. I actually stepped in for her a month ago, and it was really fun. And it's a great, well, no, I don't know if I did a good job, but it was really fun. And was it just last Tuesday? I can't believe it. Was such a powerful chat. And and what's great, and they do archive a lot of chats, and Amy storified that, I think, and I storified the one I did, which I'm going to talk about storify in a moment. But if not, if you have TweetDeck, you can just come in and look through and read whatever was happening anyway. ASL 13, there's really not much happening there anymore. Kidlit Librarians, that's a list. And you can tell which each one is, right? Whether you're following a hashtag or if it's a list, it looks like this icon over here. Kidlit Chat, what else do I have? Nerdy Book Club, Title Talk, Sharpshoe, there's my favorites, there are my direct messages, and then notifications. So if you want to add a new column, I don't think I should add any more columns, it's getting a little unwieldy now. I could click add column, and then it will allow me to choose, do I want to, what type of column I want it to be. My home column is just my general Twitter feed, but I could then search for something, I could make it a hashtag, I could do a custom timeline, I could do a list. So you could have probably infinite number of columns, but that would get unwieldy. I do like TweetDeck, where I can add a quick image down here and tweet that out. You can schedule a tweet. I don't have anything that's interesting to say to schedule a tweet, but I guess if I had a blog post, I do schedule my blog posts now. But if I had that, I could schedule the tweet that would go out after the scheduled blog post went out, but I tend to just do it in person. And then you can get down to your direct messages, although that's also a column. And this will tell me right here what each of the columns is. So I could also, I just want to check in on Kidlit, and it'll scoop right over and show me that one. So TweetDeck I love. If I wanted to respond here to Amy, this is what I can't do on Twitter. And it says I could just retweet it, or I can edit it and retweet it. And that's where I find there's real power in TweetDeck and some of the aggregators, is that then, should you want to say something, I can moderate Amy's tweet and then play around with it, or at least I could respond back and be able to edit it. But as I said, it's really up to you. You might like one of the other ones better. I think Twitter, I think I went back to Twitter on the iPad as well, as opposed to Tweetcaster. This is where I was sort of referring to earlier, the group note-taking and chats, is that you can always go back, right? And there's my now and later. Somebody like candy? Now and later? Okay, so there's a little something in each of these slides that makes me smile so that I so I think that's really the power of Twitter, is that you can tweet out at a conference, but then you can come back and you can curate it with a Storify, and then you have your own, which is also good because if you need to justify why you went to a conference or you want to show what you were learning, create a really quick Storify of some of the things, and there you've got your evidence. But it is nice to go back like through the tweet deck and be able to see what was happening and connect with people afterwards, which is great. I created a Storify. I was down at the SLJ Summit in Austin in September and created a Storify for it, which again just helped me to connect with more people, build that PLN, but also is a great way for me to keep going back if I want to remember or need to refer to something. So the chats, got the MSLA one in here finally, right? So as I said earlier, not only are they hashtags to follow, but they're actual live chats to take part in. My most frustrating thing right now is that a lot of the chats are at times that I'm not actually at home, and I could dangerously try to drive and participate in the Twitter chat, but that wouldn't be a good idea. Title Talk, TL Chat, Ed Chat, the Sharpshoot, Kidlet Chat, the MSLA chat, as I said the other night, was just burning up. You couldn't barely get tweets in. It was really fun. So you can participate in a live chat. They will be archived, but there is power in being there live and really, again, making those connections. That's another place where I find a lot of people to follow. And the MSLA chat the other day, I don't know, was bringing people out of the woodwork that I actually hadn't seen come across my Twitter feed, so I was starting to follow a lot of people out of that chat. Richard Byrne, who is so great up in Maine, and he does the tech teacher, free tech for teachers, thank you. He actually has on his webpage then all these Twitter chats for education. This was back in November, but you can click on the link, I think back there, and it'll bring you to the ones for this month. Other really great Twitter tools that really make Twitter just more powerful than tweeting in and tweeting out. You can shorten all your URLs with Bitly, which saves you characters. When you have 140, it's really great to just squeeze it down if you can. I do have Pocket. I don't use it as much, but you can then save articles to read later. You can save web pages. And you can share photos with TwitPic. There's so many ways to share photos through Instagram, TwitPic, whatever tool you might be using. But all of those give you an opportunity to sort of engage in Twitter and broaden that PLN. And really, it's as you all use Twitter, but just continuing to make it your tool. And I think it's we're in this profession, I think we're really flexible and we're always growing. I just think there's something about being in a school library, regardless of whether it's K to 12. And so there are times when I'm really just a lurker, that I don't have much to say. My life is too busy. I'm not reading enough articles to be able to push them back out to other people, and I'm just on there lurking in other people's. And there are times that I'm really a contributor and I feel like I'm adding to the content that's out there. I keep mine wholly professional, but you might decide. I know people have 2 Twitter accounts, and that's far too much for my brain right now with all the other things going on. So, but some people do mix it up a little bit. And I tend to be a daily person, but when I get up to New Hampshire in the summer, where my parents don't have internet and there's nothing up there, I tend to be the really sporadic user. But what's really powerful is that it's right there. The minute I tweet out, I have somebody who's tweeted right back. And then, the forgiveness, I always feel like it's a little bit of forgiveness, like, where have you been for the last 3 weeks? But that PLN is always there for you. And you don't have to be a daily user, which is great. And you can just cruise or curate. And so if you want to start developing your own, the hashtags that you want to follow, and favoriting things and finding people, or it can just be something that you just want to not be that serious, and just look through and see what's there. I will not play myself up there. This was up there for people that I wasn't live in front of, and it basically just talks about why I like Twitter like my friends did. But here's some students loading through Skype.
Today we are going to tell you a little about travel books. You can read storybooks and non-fiction books, and you can read along with chapter books. There are also puzzles and games that go along with many of the books. You can even read some books in other languages. To start, you need...
I won't play the whole thing, I didn't realize it was so long. But that, you know, just a quick Twitter connection, and then your students are going to teach my students how to do something, and then it's not me standing in front of them. The children have an authentic audience. They're learning from each other. They're understanding that the walls of our libraries don't confine us, which is great. I want to sneak out of here for a second to show you what happened on Twitter today, which was just so much fun. I'm going to go back to that. All right, so sorry. So here was sort of John Shu then coming back about how he, a few weeks after he finished his MED, and everybody was talking about what they wanted to do in their library stories. And then this woman said, love your stories, I don't know who she is. And then Andy Clemens, who's a really great guy to follow, you know, we should develop a hashtag. And so then I started to throw out some hashtags, and then we got the Why Live, which is, so please do share your story right there. So really quickly, there were 10 of us that were, this is a really good idea, and then other people were jumping in, and then there was just this, the story sharing and the storytelling. And then you get personal stories like poor Sherry Gick, whose children were throwing up on the way home from Florida last night in the car. So she wasn't so awake this morning. But the thing I wanted to show you is there's Laura. I'd said, oh, you know, I'm showing the Twitter PLN. And so then Laura tweets out, howdy students, you know, and she's waving to all of you guys. And then Matthew, you know, happy to help you be awesome, whatever. But really fun how, oh, and this one, I just want to show you this conversation. It just feeds me. It's a fun, there are people that I don't get to see, there are people that I really enjoy when I do see them, but that there are people that are passionate about goofy things like, oh, let's go with a hashtag to talk about our library stories, you know, and what can it be, and how that can be a whole nother element now, and Sherry's going to blog about it so you can see hers. If you're on Twitter and you want to see the view of the conversation, right, you just click on that. But this woman, Kelly Spector, put out, I need a pin to wear in library bookstores saying, warning, eye contact makes me intro. And, you know, and then she tags the authors, Amy Dykman, Catherine Applegate, and Drew. And so I don't know who she is, but I know those other authors. So I jumped in and I said, okay, I love this idea. How about warning? Looking at me causes book talking, or something of that kind. And then she's like, oh, that's it, I want that one. And it's funny, it's virtual. I actually met those other authors, so it's somewhat virtual, but not totally virtual, but that was just a really fun thing. And I am thinking about, oh my God, I might make a button. That would be really fun, right? You know, warning, see what people see what they say when they see it. And then I have to go back to this little YouTube video. I thought I bookmarked it, but this is so funny, and I want to do this. And this is another reason why Twitter's so
good. Good afternoon.
Oh.
Good afternoon, folks. I'm Melville Dewey, and welcome to the 87th Annual Masters of Library Science Croquet Tournament. Set in beautiful New Hanover County Public Library, the Masters has attracted some of the world's top croquet professionals, including the likes of Harry Tuckmeyer, Boris Roseborough, Susan Wood, and more. 18 holes of croquet excitement, 200,000 books, one champion. Who will it be? Let's go to hole number 5, Local History Department. Beverly Tennyson setting up, needs to get around the 200-year-old atlases to save par. Bank shot, and it's through. Hole number 7, Children's Department. Former U.S. Amateur Champion Margaret Mouse setting up. She makes it past the sand trap. around the world music, and it's good. And the crowd is going wild.
Oh my gosh, so clever, right? I love that, around the sand trap, right? So then and Sherry had put that out, so I tweeted back to her, I was like, oh, we need to be this clever. So it's not always, it doesn't have to be the really serious article that's all about instruction, but something like that can come across that just really will make you smile and get you thinking about other ways you could, create something that would celebrate what's in your library. And I have a croquet set. I'm thinking that, Chris, you didn't hear this. I'm thinking the croquet set might come in. Maybe the students could create their own really funny thing, like what would the obstacles be in the croquet game that we would do. Okay. I always welcome feedback. You're welcome to tweet it out to me. You talk too much. You talk too fast. No. But please do share any feedback because I'm always wanting to change anything I need to change. And thank you for your time.
Any questions?
What was the topic of the MSLA chat?
Oh.
It's Dewey versus genre.
Okay.
The genreification movement, and which is really, Chris and I used to job share in the same library, so she can speak to this, but we were Dewey, but within that, she did things like, which I love, the birds are alphabetized, so you go to that Dewey number, but then hawks are under H, and I'm telling you, those little first and second graders, it's so easy for them to find their books if they know, but they have to know the general Dewey number. And she did the same thing in the planets, which is really great, so it's so much easier to find the planet books. We talked about it like sports, but then what do you, basketball, baseball, it doesn't quite work the same way, so the sports still sit traditionally.
She'll have a good idea.
I split up my 796 into ball sports and then other sports. Just to,
nice. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Excellent.
So if anyone's interested
What's the next
in seeing what the tweets were, what all the discussion was, the archive of that chat is on MSLA's website. So if you go to the Mass School Library Association's website, under resources, the Twitter chat schedule is there, and then also the archives from that chat and from other chats as well.
Right. But it was just really, it was so interesting, and it's something that's certainly coming up, and at AASL and at the national conferences, people have really been talking about, especially at the elementary level, genreifying their libraries. Yes.
I have a couple questions about just sort of the digital profile here in terms of, so you said your tweeting is professional. It's not a personal tweet, you're not saying you ate ice cream last night.
Right, exactly.
Somehow relates to books, whatever.
Right.
Do you have a separate Twitter account for your library? I mean, how do you handle things like parents and I don't know, students tweeting you? I mean, is that happening? Or
right. It is not happening for me at the elementary level. I did want to, the problem is the age. I would love to have Mason Rice Library, that's too long, like MR lib tweets or something, to give the students an authentic voice. So instead of me asking Ann or Sue, why did you make Hazel Indian? And then getting the response back, God, it would be so great if the students could do that, but of course they're not 13, so it can't legally happen. One of the ways I've seen, so the short answer is, I don't have a personal one, and I don't have parents tweeting me yet, or students on my professional one.
We have, there's a number of kindergarten classrooms that, have a Twitter account. I have a Twitter account in the library, but I haven't been totally satisfied because basically just there's a lot of lurkers. Parents are lurking a lot, which is fine. I'll just put up a little thing about something we did with class or whatever. But it tends to be more of a format just for show and tell rather than what you're talking about in terms of the personal learning community.
Right, right. Yeah, I haven't, it's not an area that I've connected with the parents, but I'd actually would love that in terms of advocacy, because then they would see. So now you've got me thinking about.
A lot of questions out there, yeah.
Maybe, yeah. But I do, I haven't had any students come back on Twitter. I have had a couple students come back on Facebook who have found me because I live in the town that I teach in, and I don't friend them, you know, and of course I wouldn't, even when they're graduating from high school, because I just don't think that they would. But I know, I think this area will become grayer because a number of my colleagues have Facebook library pages, which I didn't get into that, and you know, I keep thinking maybe I should do that. It might be just a place to just post out the blog posts, but then it's another thing for me to manage. And I think I have to be realistic. And so if I am passionate about writing, not that it's always, just because it feeds me and it helps me be reflective. So I think maintaining my blog and Twitter, you know, keep me happy enough. But I think, you know, I think that's a great area with the parents because it's a great advocacy piece, but at the same time, I don't think I want them saying, you know, questioning me in that in that venue.
Exactly. So
yeah. Thank you.
Speaking of balancing the blog and Twitter, how do you do that outside of school? Like it's so much work, school.
Right.
How do you do that?
I stay up really late at night. I only blog late at night, and I just find that the space for me to write generally doesn't start until 9 o'clock. Like I don't get home. I mean, you don't need to know my personal life. I'm an empty nester now. So the things that drove me to leave school right after school and go to my son's tennis game or our daughter's running, you know, are no longer there. So I find that I'm usually at school finishing up my school work and getting ready for the next day until, you know, later, usually 5 or 6, and then get home, have dinner, sort of regroup at home, and then sit down and write my blog posts at like 9. And some of them are fast and some of them are longer. So, but I don't think you have to do it that way, and I think it depends on how much you want to blog. I tend to write too much, and then I have to go back and dice it all out, or I leave it in it's too much, and but I really am trying to make the blog, I mean, that's the other piece, and it's a different discussion, but I want the blog to be too much. So I want it to be the place where the parents can go and understand the learning that's happening in the school library. And I know I have a number of parent followers that are reading the blog daily or whenever I blog, because they come in and they'll say something, or they'll send me an email saying, loved what the first graders did in the library yesterday or something. So, you know, that's that one audience, and then there's the piece of me that wants it to be for other teacher librarians so they can replicate it. So I tend to put I've been trying to, but it's been a little busy lately, the actual, without putting up a lesson plan, the different aspects of the lesson up there so that it could be replicated. And then there's a piece of me that just wants to be reflective about it. You know, so there are different audiences, and I think, you know, I think we're all in this kind of a cool, murky area. But you could do it faster and you could do it differently, and you wouldn't need to stay up late and do it. But it's sort of when I find the emotional space that there's no emotional space right after school for me. I need to sort of reset my space, my physical library space. Is there another question?
I'm going to thank you all for coming. And I want to thank Jennifer for the wonderful presentation that she brought to us. And again, folks from Newton, sincerely appreciate your coming here today. I want to make an announcement. Those of you that have taken Linda Braun's courses, Linda Braun has taken a job as the Director of Young Adult Services for the Seattle Public Library. So her ability to also teach at Simmons is going to become very, very tiny. And I wanted to make the announcement today that I have asked Jennifer Reed to take over the 460, the School Library Teacher in Technology. So Jennifer will be the person who will be teaching the class next, which will be spring 2015. So thank you very much for doing that.